Hey everybody, this is Morgan from Sevendust, and you're listening to Discography Discussion.
You're listening to Discography Discussion, episode 137, Sevendust, featuring Morgan Rose of Sevendust and Scott Bowling of Good Company.
Hey guys, it's Scott Bowling from Good Company.
Hosted by Dan Terry.
I think what Joe's getting at, he's just fanboying out a little too much to articulate it. But
No, it's all good.
And Joseph Wren. I'm talking to Morgan Rose! Presented by discussmetal.com. And if you need something to feel real again before you go numb, then you are ready for this episode of Discography Discussion. I am Joe, that is Dan, Scott Bowling is here, and we're talking to Morgan Rose because Scott is our friend. Scott made the call, said, you guys want to talk to Morgan? And before he could say the last name, I said, I'm in, dude.
Well, actually what happened is I sent him a message. And I was like, yeah, we should do an episode again like we did with like The Bride. And then it was actually Scott that was like, well, hey, I could probably get Morgan Rose to come do something with us too. And I was like, oh, yeah, I mean, I'm not going to say no to that.
He would die if he had.
We have a bananas interview with Morgan Rose for you guys to listen to tonight. Dude, there just no boundaries. We asked so many questions, and he had so many answers. In one of our longer episodes, people have been complaining lately, Joe, that our episodes are too short. They want long episodes again. Well, here you go.
It's like if you took Forrest Gump and you watched Forrest Gump all the way through, and then you restart it and watched it all over again. That's about how long the podcast seemed to go.
Pretty much. Now, who has a better story, though? Forrest Gump or Morgan Rose?
That's a tie. They're both great. Yeah.
One's a real person, one's not. Oh man, but so we talked to Morgan Rose for a long time. We found an appreciation for Lion's Choice, and it was just the best time. Every now and again, we'll get somebody on that wants to talk about their own discography with us, and I thought this was kind of this is almost like our version of VH1's Behind the Music. Where we got the actual story behind a lot of this stuff.
So for you diehard fans out there, if there's ever something you've wanted to know about Sevendust, hopefully we asked the question and got the answer. I actually think Scott might be the only person in the room who's a bigger Sevendust fan than me.
That's awesome, man. What's your favorite album? What's your favorite Sevendust album? I don't even think we talked about that.
It's definitely Seasons, because that's the first album I heard. Every song is a single.
Oh, we become best friends, brother. Yes, I totally agree. Butch Walker. Have you watched the making of when they, if you bought the Seasons album?
Absolutely. Back in the day when the CDs started to come with DVDs, and it had to be a behind-the-scenes hour-long documentary.
I worship that stuff, man. I think that was gold for me. Dude, that's amazing. Mine's Animosity, but Seasons is a close second.
Well, I think Animosity is their most popular album overall, and there's a good reason for it.
Yeah, that one's my favorite as well, as Animosity.
Yeah, it's a huge jump, man. If you listen to like Home all the way through, and they played Home live, when they go from Home to Animosity, it's like, what happened? I mean, it's just complete. The songs are so better,
better.
So better.
So
they
better.
Are. No, I largely agree. It's that record was their heaviest, and yeah, they just kind of finally figured out their sound, and that's what kind of carried them through into greatness after that.
Yeah, and the pod. I didn't mean to interrupt you, but the podcast we love, like Roach Coach. I wish they would do Animosity, because I know they did Home, which was really cool, and man, I wish they'd have Animosity on their, cover that Roach Coach podcast.
I'm sure they'll get around to it.
They did Home recently, right?
Right.
Pretty recently, yeah. I think what they do, and I could be totally wrong about this, and he can correct me later, but I think it's like one album for a bigger band a year. You know, like they'll do a Korn review, like another Korn album once a year or so. So they got time to talk about some of the other stuff. So they've already had done Sevendust twice. So I think it probably won't be too long before they do Animosity.
Well, that'll be cool, man.
Absolutely.
Well, before God bites his tongue, I want to take this time to say thank you to everyone for listening to the podcast. Thank you for listening and for subscribing. If you are not a subscriber, then you can find everything Discography Discussion at discussmetal.com. We are on Spotify, Apple and Google Podcasts, TuneIn Radio, Stitcher, so if you have an Amazon Echo or a Google Home, you have no excuse. Ask it to play the latest episode of the Discography Discussion podcast, and it will. We're also on Facebook and on Twitter at Discuss Metal. Be sure to like, favorite, and subscribe. It really helps us out. It lets us know you're listening, and now Dan is going to tell us all about 5-star reviews.
We love 5-star reviews here on Discography Discussion, and the reason we love them is because they make me feel good. You know what makes me feel good? The two I'm about to read right now. We got one from The Scarab God. Lots to say about this podcast. Been meaning to write a review for a few weeks now. Sorry for the delay. These dudes have such a killer show. I rarely listen to shows with multiple hosts because I think the personalities almost always clash and it gets annoying. These guys have the best chemistry I've come across. Even whenever they clearly disagree, it's so darn entertaining, and that's the thing. I don't even agree with everything that they have to say, but that's part of the fun. It really is like hanging out at a bar with a few friends, pounding Bud Heavies and talking about records, except you were just a listener for now. I'm hell-bent on being a guest on the show. So anyway, great guys, great music, great guests on the show, and a great variety. They have episodes covering the big names, Metallica, Rammstein, Zao, to some deep-cut Christian market bands. Was stoked to see an episode covering Bride and Mortification on the list. Very happy to have found this podcast. Excited to see where it goes. Ooh, I don't even know what to say. That's a book.
Thank you, Scott Bowling, for making us talk about Bride.
He did.
Yeah, that's so awesome.
He came over to my house and put a knife to my throat and was like, "You're gonna talk about Bride." And I'm like, "I don't want to talk about Bride." And he's like, "We're not here to talk about what you want." It was insane.
Exactly.
It happened just like that.
Yeah. He drove all the way to St. Louis. It was incredible.
Me and Dale, the singer of Bride, we were together. He drove the car.
He would. He came all the way over from New Zealand.
Yeah, no, I would be on your show, but I live in New Zealand.
You're like, oh well, I guess you're never going to be on my show then. So the next one I have is by Keith Apparatus. It's called "I Hate Titles." Solid podcast. Keep doing what you're doing. Among everything else, I much enjoy the YouTube guests you have on, like Metal Jesus and Cinemassacre. If you could add one element to your format, it would be to include trivia tidbits once in a while. A few examples: Adam D from Killswitch Engage was the drummer on their first two albums before moving to guitar. Adam D of Killswitch also produced Norma Jean's Bless the Martyr, Kiss the Child. 9 Inch Nails recording Broken and DWS in Shannon Tate House, and any of the Dillinger Escape Plan drummers. I think we can try to dig up some trivia whenever we're talking about these bands.
If anybody knows random trivia that people will need to research for hours on the internet and dive into the rabbit hole of message boards, it's Dan Terry.
I do that anyway. I just didn't think anybody cared, so I left a lot of it out. That's a mistake on my part. But one of the things, guys, 5-star reviews are great. They make me feel good. I love reading them on the show. But there's one thing that you can do that really helps us out, and that is to share the episodes. Whenever this podcast posts every week, share it with your friends. If they're into metal, they're going to enjoy the podcast just like you do. Sharing is caring, and that is super generic, and I don't care. I also want to take a minute to shout out our loyal patrons. These are the guys that give us money every month. I mean, come on. I got to shout them out.
They're paying for it.
That includes Alexander, Brian Dean, David Brown, Jeffrey De Los Santos,
The Actual Mac,
Kiki Kuti, Do You Love Me?
I Do Love You,
Lance Allagood,
The King of Metal,
The King of Metal, Native Keebs, Patrick Asplund, Samuel Woodward, and Zach Barr. You guys are the music makers. You're the reason why this show still exists, because I can't pay for this on my own.
And now Scott Bowling is going to tell us all about Good Company.
Good Company is a show that I started. Originally, I was going to do a podcast, but I did a show in my basement. And so I actually interview rock musicians. If you think like VH1 Behind the Music, when that was awesome and you had to wait every week to get one of those episodes. Well, with my show, you had to wait a lot longer, but you get the same kind of storyline, kind of like the show Discography Discussion. You get kind of the history, and I have a bunch of props and vinyls, and we kind of show them on cameras. By the way, the show has cameras. We have 3 cameras. So we filmed the show in my basement anyway, getting distracted. So I have these props and vinyls, and I say props because everybody goes, I've never seen that vinyl before, because it's a prop. It's not actually a vinyl. And we go through each record, and it's been awesome. I've done it for past probably 3 years now. So we're coming up on our 50th episode, and I haven't told anybody this, but I got Ray Lazier from Korn coming here on Saturday. So
sweet.
Well,
that's exciting. So I need to show up at your house randomly on Saturday. Got it.
You should.
We knew he'd get us eventually.
You should tell John, but John will probably diss me because he'll say, I'm going to be there, but Falcons, can't make it.
I know John's been hitting the gym a lot lately, and it's killing him. The other night I was like, let's do some episodes, and he's like, dude, I'm dead from the gym, so we're gonna have to do these later. I was like, all right.
When I hear stuff like that, I just stare at my own belly and I go, I hate myself.
Yeah.
I need to get back into the gym.
I don't know, man. I had to work my whole life to get to this size. I don't want to ruin it by going to the gym. It's called Denial. It's a Sevendust song. You should check it out.
Yeah.
Well, guys, without further ado, I think we've spent enough time beating around the bush. Let's get into this Sevendust interview, and we'll be back to talk to you guys afterwards.
It's good to hear from you.
What's going on? Yeah, you too, buddy.
Yeah, we can hang out more often, man.
I know it, man. You're close enough. I'm doing nothing. But today is a day of leisure. After I get done with this, I'll move a PlayStation 4 from one room to another, and that'll be my workout for the day.
There you go.
Borderlands 3, right?
Yeah.
I'm glad we're on the same page.
Joe's been obsessed with Borderlands.
I have 2 jobs: edit the podcast, work for a living, and play Borderlands 3. I know what I said.
There you go. Yep. My little dude he's got a different system in every room of the house. It's ridiculous. There's a PS3 in my room. There's a PS4 upstairs. There's an Xbox One in the living room. There's an Xbox something else somewhere. I mean, they're everywhere.
Man, my son would love it. That would be like heaven. He's only 6. But
oh, yeah, man.
He would drive him crazy. He would love it.
Right? My dude's 11, and it's crazy.
I love all this retro stuff they're bringing back, man. Like my son, I'm raising him like he was born in the 90s. Like he's playing Super Mario Brothers and Punch Out, and he thinks that's the best thing ever.
I love it. That's great. Yeah, your place is great for all that stuff, Scott. You got all the games over there.
Yeah, thank you, brother. Yeah, looks like a arcade.
Yeah, I love it.
I'm jealous, Scott. I told you already, but I'm going to have to change my lights just to match the purple and blue glory that is Scott Bowling's basement.
It looks like a strip club with all the lights.
I love it. Got a little halftime action in the Clemson, North Carolina game all tied up.
Sounds like North Carolina's going to take it.
That would be so great. That would be amazing.
That is my birthplace, North Carolina.
Oh, yeah? What part of Carolina?
Well, it was just, it was in Cape Fear. But it's kind of a dumb story because, I was literally just, my mom was from St. Louis. And she was just up there visiting her sister while she was pregnant. And I just happened to be born there. I wasn't from there.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. But I do like the Cape Fear. So, where were you born? Cape Fear Hospital.
Yeah. So you're a big Cardinals and Blues and all that. Are you all St. Louis crazy like that?
I like obviously we all like the Blues now. But Cardinals, yeah, we're the worst fans in baseball.
It's so funny. My ex-girl is from St. Louis, and it's fucking insanity there with the Cardinals and the Blues. they never really gave a shit about the Rams, I guess. So the Rams said, okay, I guess we'll leave.
Yeah, fuck the Rams.
We tried to give a shit about them, but, you know, when you win a Super Bowl and then the next year you go back to the Super Bowl and then lose and never go back to the playoffs, it's hard to buy into it. But then again, St. Louis has always been baseball and hockey.
Yeah.
Even though the Blues are basically Canadian at this point.
Yeah, well, pretty much all of them are.
That's why we won.
Right. We can't hold a hockey team in Georgia. It's pathetic.
I know, right? I've never even been to a hockey game, which is sad.
Really?
Oh, man.
Yeah.
You never just seen two
I
dudes
love
just
them.
start fighting for no reason? It's like the best part.
Yeah, I've never experienced it. I want to.
Like, you want to go? You can. Okay. You want to do it? Yeah, let's do it right here. Okay, cool. How's your brother? I mean, that's basically how it is. They ask, would you like to do this now? You know?
Yeah, that's wild, dude.
If I hadn't seen it on YouTube, I wouldn't believe it.
Yeah, it's like, what other sport can you get into a full-blown fist fight in the middle of the game, and then they say, we're going to put you in your room for 5 minutes.
Yep.
Then you can come play again. Every time you get in a fight in any other sport, they're like suspending you for games. You know, this is like, we're going to put you in your, in the corner for 5 minutes.
Yeah, in baseball, you say fuck to an umpire and you get kicked out of the game, you know?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
You got to leave the field, the stadium, the city, maybe even the state. I don't know.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, it's brutal.
All right. Well, do we want to get rocking and rolling here? Or since I'm late, now I'm acting like I'm in a hurry?
No, it's all good.
You're asking the guy who's sitting over in the corner trying not to fan out if we should just get this thing going. Like, you're putting that on me right now.
Hey man, I listened to every single Sevendust album this week.
As did I for the past 15 years.
Oh my God, you poor bastards!
Well, I've it's all right. I took breaks, but it's just what we do here on the show. Is we'll digest a discography. Yeah, I mean, I've been listening to Sevendust for, pretty much most of the time I've been listening to heavy music. It's been that long. And I've just never listened to it all concentrated in 1 week like that before, which was. This
will be educational for me. There's been so many of them. It's like, oh my God.
So Morgan, at some point, if you're like, Dan, what did you think about about Home? Yeah, because I don't remember.
Yeah. Right. I had to get educated on Home because it was 20 years old. So we did some Home shows, and I was like, "Oh my God, dude, this song is terrible." I gotta
learn how to play this record again. Yeah.
Oh yeah, totally. We totally had to relearn how to do it. And then Animosity is going to come up this year, next year, and then it'll be. Yeah, we'll definitely do it. It's going to be. It's definitely going to be. Those shows will happen. We're getting a little older, so we got to pick and choose, exactly what we want to tackle here.
Right.
But Animosity would be great, man. I'd be like a grown man crying seeing that show, man. I'd have to go travel a few times.
Yeah, that'll be a fun one. I do like that record a lot. That was probably the first record that we ever did that I was like, okay, I like this. Yeah. Took us 3 records for me to say, I think I like my band.
Oh my goodness. Yeah.
And that record has Crucified on it.
It's
yeah
it's kind of scary how 20 years go by and then you do an anniversary for Home, and then you just basically have to go out on tour every year after that to have your whole career again just to celebrate the anniversaries.
Yeah, it's trippy. Seasons will probably be like that too. And then, by that time, shit, if we're alive, by that time it'll be, trying to figure out what the hell. Are we really going to do the next 20-year anniversary? I don't think so.
Right.
Well, we can do holograms now, so that we can definitely get
a hologram. Yeah.
Hologram 7.
Yeah.
We can have you in your 20s up there playing.
Oh my God.
What happens when the 20-year of Southside Double Wide comes up?
Yeah,
you just got to play it on trash cans at that point.
That'll be great. That would be great, because that's easy. The acoustic stuff is way easier. That's basically. When we were doing those shows, I could be in the dressing room or in the bus. I'd be like laying down eating and, no getting prepared. There's no, gearing up. I mean, my whole thing is getting ready for shows is, I have a routine because I'm mentally just a mess before we go on. So, by the time we get and most of it, there's no fear of playing the concerts anymore. I don't get butterflies from any of that. I get the nervousness from like what's gonna break on me tonight. Am I gonna be able to get through the show without fucking dying up here?
Wow.
So that's really the only thing that gets me. So when we're doing the acoustic stuff, I'm like, I don't have anything to worry about. So I'm laying down, eating, watching TV. They're like, hey, dude, you're going on in like 4 minutes. I'm like, oh, all right. We just get up, walk in. Oh, nice crowd tonight. Okay, this will be fun. And kick back and still play hard, but it's not the same mindset.
At least if you break a cymbal at that point, it's your fault.
Yeah. Right.
So the way we're going to break this one down tonight is number one with taking time into consideration. Instead of us having a 30-minute conversation about every album, which is like what we usually do, we're gonna start at the beginning with Sevendust, 1997, and we are going to talk about kind of just some interesting tidbits about that album that maybe people may not know, even if they're longtime fans.
The first record was, you're dealing with a bunch of kids that are green. I mean, we're so green. We would go into studios to do those demos. Butch Walker had actually recorded some of the demos that we did before we got a record deal. So we get the record deal and we start recording the day before the Olympics start in Atlanta, and we finished recording the day after they ended. So literally we were in the studio every single day during the Olympics. It was almost to the day it started to the day it ended. One day early we started. So we missed all of the Olympics and everything, but it was the first time I'd ever played to a click track or that the band ever did anything like that. I mean, everything was a first. So I do remember going in there to track these songs, and like Lejean is a really emotional type of singer. He would like to grab the mic and, he could walk around the room with a mic and record. And obviously that wasn't going to happen. So we were being told that he needed to keep his mouth a certain distance from the microphone. Like he couldn't work the mic at all. So it was really a stale, everything about that record was kind of stale for us because it was to the grid. It was like, there wasn't Pro Tools or anything back then. We were working right to the tape. So, you needed to get it right. I mean, obviously there's a few tricks around here, you can cut some tape and do this and that. But as far as just, putting it on the grid and lining it up, I mean, that wasn't going to happen. So here I am sitting in there, Lejean singing songs on this record, and I'm holding I'm holding his chin. I've got my hand like right near him, near his face, while he's tracking vocals for this album because he kept moving away. And, I'm like touching the back of his head, like stay this distance. I mean, it was so insane to think that was even really a thing. We just had no clue. We had no idea what we were doing. So we were just listening to everything. I mean, tracking the drums was like, here's the click. So just play right on the click. So there was no, I mean, the thing was, I was cool with playing to the click. I'd never done it in my life, and I just took to it really easy. It wasn't a big problem. The only issue with it was that I wasn't able to play behind it a little or ahead of it a little. Like I couldn't play the song with feel. It was all just play that shit dead on. Like don't waver from that, just stay right there. So, meanwhile, I'm thinking, yeah, man, I nailed that click. And then you listen back to it, and I'm like, that is stale. There is no movement, groove in there. It's all just right on it. But it was a raw record, It sounded raw. It was just, our first time in there. I mean, we didn't have a clue of what was going to happen. We didn't think, I mean, we had 300 people maybe that knew who we were in the world. So, to put that record out and then, 2 years later, it sold 1 million and we've toured the world on it, and it's like, whoa. And I had a dog, a fiance, and a house, and I came back and I had a daughter, a wife, and a condo, and the wife wasn't the same girl that I left, and the condo was not the house. It was like my whole life just spun right out. It was like crazy.
Morgan, I had a quick question, man. When you said you were recording during the Olympics, you remember the Atlanta bombings and everything? There was like a bomb that went off. Yeah, did you guys write a song about that or something? Make it to lyrics? I mean, I feel like Lejean, or not Lejean, but maybe Clint or somebody told me that they had incorporated that bombing or something to some of how the record was, or one of the songs. I could be wrong, man. I
don't remember that happening, but I mean, it was definitely long enough ago where if somebody else in the band said that happened, I wouldn't argue with them. I was like, I mean, did you guys go to the Olympics down there? No, we never went because we were in the room the entire time. So we never went. I mean, Soundgarden played. I know we went. I almost want to say that Clint got away. Maybe him and John got away that night to see that. I want to say that, but
that's awesome.
we were pretty much locked in there, and we were cool with it. It was this brief moment of, damn, man, we ain't going to see any curling or anything, and then it was, that's all right. We're doing a record, we're signed, and we've been trying to do this since we were, teenagers, and now we're here. So even though we still didn't believe that anybody was going to give a shit, it was like, let's at least give it a shot.
There's kind of a question on this record in particular. I've listened to a lot of bands on this show over 3 years, and I can tell you, I've never heard a band that had a singer that was so good on the first album, like right out of the box, except like maybe Tool, or something like that. But was Lejean always, like, the very first time you guys played music together, that good of a singer out of the box?
Yeah, I mean, his thing was he had this strength that was, his voice is really wide, I mean, he doesn't double a lot of his vocals in the studio, a lot of times anytime I'm tracking screaming stuff or backups, or anytime that Clint's doing any backups or any lead vocal stuff, that pops in there, it's always doubled. We're always doubling, to build some width and some depth to our tones. And with Lejean, it's almost like there's two sets of voices in there. I mean, it's thick and it's durable. I mean, he's really only had probably in our career maybe one night that his voice went out. And, we were probably being ridden slave driven. I mean, back then, I remember doing 22 shows in 21 days. So, I mean, his voice would hold up through that. So, yeah, I mean, he was, as far as just being able to go in there and sing, yeah, he's always had that. I mean, that was the attraction when I got him. When I put the band together, that was it. I was like, this dude's cool, and that voice is thick, man. It's aggressive.
It's strong, and that was the thing that really stood out to me on the first record, especially just because I never hear bands do this well, at least vocally on their first release. It's so uncommon. I mean, I can only imagine what you must have been thinking the first time you guys played in a room together. Oh my God, I hit a home run.
Yeah, I mean, it was one of the things about, I put the band together because everybody was cool. I mean, that was really the truth of it. It wasn't, John didn't own a guitar strap. Lejean, was doing rock songs, but he was in a band called Body and Soul that was much more groove oriented and it was still rock, but it was kind of funky. And the guitar player that I got with him, because I didn't feel comfortable about pulling Lejean out of his band and leaving him alone with us. I thought we'll have a better chance of getting him if we take a package deal with the guitar player. And he was more of a funky guy. So when I got Clint into the band, it was, I hate to say this, but there was a little bit of method to the madness. I mean, I wanted cool people in the band to start with, and that was what I got. I got guys that, you know, if you were to get lucky enough to get a record deal and have a 20-plus year career, you wouldn't mind living in a hallway with them. And it didn't matter if they were really good. It just, I wanted them to be cool. And then after the coolness was, you know, solidified and everything, it was, okay, you know, we have a shot here. Like, there's something really cool about this. And the only thing that's a little bit sketchy is that this really good guitar player that's playing lead for us is more of a funky guy, and I want to be heavier. So that's when I said, we need another cool guy in here, but we need him to be heavier. And Lejean and us had built a close-knit bond to where I didn't think that he would feel like he was all alone. So after, like, you know, 2 years of us doing our thing, that's when I went and got Clint. So I kind of had that plan for a while, and then when it happened, it was like, yeah, everything happened there. I mean, I had blown my eardrum out when Clint came in to play the first time, so I didn't really hear him, but I had heard him plenty, and I knew, and I just looked around the room. I couldn't hear him, but everybody was like, oh yeah, when you can hear, you're going to like this. Like, this is definitely the band now.
Yeah, you actually, when you blew your ear out, didn't you puncture it? Like something with your headphone actually punched your drum. That's insane, dude.
Yeah, I was at a concert, so I blew it out of the show, and they told me I probably would never hear out of my right ear again. So that was a little bit disturbing. You know, I'm a drummer in a band, and I'm only going to be able to hear out of one ear. But it came back. Now it's fucking gone again from 20-something years of music into it. But like now I have no hearing in either ear. But,
do you ever have that constant ringing? Like if
oh yeah.
Like, yeah, that's horrible. Eddie Trunk was talking about that.
Like tinnitus?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I have to sleep with noise, you know, or else it'll drive you completely crazy.
Yeah,
it's
same
just,
here.
You know. Like that volume, it's screaming loud. I'm like, wow, man, that's probably like 102 in dB levels right now, just in complete silence.
That's awful.
Joe, did you have anything about the self-titled, or are we ready to move on to Home?
We can start talking about Home and the glory that is Toby Wright, because that man is the right man for the job.
Hey, we just talked to him a couple weeks ago.
That's too crazy.
For the self-titled Sevendust, my 12-year-old ignorant metal brain, which had only recently discovered Metallica, I used to confuse Bitch for a Pantera song.
Oh, wow.
Because Lejean had this aggressive bark to his voice, which I had only heard Phil Anselmo do at the time. I've always kind of listened to Metallica and Megadeth and kind of the classic thrash bands, but I didn't know it was you until 2001, 2002. I mean, Animosity was huge. Oh, wow. I started playing drums in 2003, and that's when I went back and said, oh, that's the band. That's awesome. I love these guys. Let me go get the other records, because Seasons 2003 comes out, was when I just started taking drum lessons, and I forgot where I was going with this. Hang on a second.
It's all good to me.
Pardon me. I'm talking to Morgan Rose.
He's like, tell me more about myself. Yeah.
My question, man, was, and I cannot cite this interview, but you might have said it as a joke. You might have been serious. I was told that in 1997, when you recorded the record, that you were nervous in the studio, so basically most of the beats on the record you stole directly from the Police and Stuart Copeland. Is that true?
Yeah, God. And, you know, I vaguely remember saying something about Stuart Copeland, but it was definitely a joke. I mean, I wish that I had Stuart Copeland skills, you know. No, I mean, I was nervous in there because we were being told shit that was really crazy. I mean, I remember being told, if you don't get it right, we'll get somebody else in here to do it.
Ugh.
Oh my gosh.
I remember hearing that, you know, and I was sitting there going, I mean, you know, it was like JJ French was the reason for so many things good. I mean, JJ French was the one that we didn't want to put Black on the record. So that's a fact. We didn't want to put the song on the record at all. We didn't want it on there. And he was like, you're crazy. This is going to be your song. And we're going, you're crazy. You know, this song sucks. He made us put Black on the record. And then not only that, but he actually was like, we should build an intro and make it the opener for the record. So here we go from not even wanting the song on the record to where he's telling us you're going to put it on there and we're going to do this intro and that whole that was all like, it was his idea, you know, to build that way. So, I mean, as much as I absolutely despise playing that song, and it's definitely not a favorite of mine or anything like that, there's no question that was the song that I mean, I don't think this band has ever broken, you know, but as far as that made us noticed at all, that got us into the game, that gave us a chip and a chair, that was the song. So without that song, I don't even know if anybody knows who we are.
I would have thought that was Bitch, but that's my Midwest memory.
Yeah, Bitch was one of the first songs I remember hearing.
Yeah. Those two were on this little cassette sampler that went out, and it was really weird because Black was the first song and Bitch was the second one. So, you know, Black Bitch.
Oh, no.
And it was like, if that isn't fucking racist as shit.
I just got that.
Like, that's fucking... I'm like, if that isn't fucking racist, I'm like, Jesus, this is so fucking weird. The whole thing was like, you know, coming from a band that, again, was like so naive to any type of racial issues from a bunch of our sides. I mean, I remember, you know, the label wanting Lejean to make a point of getting vocal about, you know, about the white and black thing. And he was like, no, you know.
How about I don't happen. Do that? Yeah.
And then I remember somebody asking me in one of the first interviews we did, and I got really offended to it. They said, what's it like having a black singer in a predominantly white genre of music? And I was like, I didn't really notice that he was black. I mean, I never looked at it like that, you know, so that's a weird ass question to me. I mean, it really bothered me almost at the time, you know, where I was like, that's fucking racist to me, you know. I mean, that just doesn't compute. I was so naive that any of that shit was part of the play, you know. I just was like, you know, I have zero comment to that because I don't live in that world. I didn't grow up in a household that was, you know, full of bigots and with racial tension or anything like that. I didn't have that problem. So I was, you know, so it was just the whole thing, you know, the whole first record was such a learning experience of who was full of shit and who actually had a clue of what they were talking about. And, you know, that you didn't really have to sit there with the drummer holding the singer's head 2 inches from the mic while he sang. That wasn't something that was a necessity.
Guys, this interviewer doesn't know what he's talking about. I'm kind of pissed off. I'm going to go buy another arm for my drum rack and add a few toms to it. You cool with that?
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Well, I think what's so offensive, I think what's so offensive too, not like beyond just the racial side of it though, is the fact that they're just trying to use that to make some money, you know? And that, I don't know, that makes it almost worse in a way, you know, where it's like, well, we want to capitalize on the fact that there's a black guy in the band singing so that we can, you know, so that people will pay attention to us and, you know, using it at your guys' expense.
Yeah, I mean, I have nothing against anybody wanting to speak their mind, and, you know, I've done it plenty in my career, but, you know, I usually try to stay out of politics and religion and, you know, whatever is the big thing that's going on that's time to jump on Instagram and pick a side. I'm like, I'll just go ahead and play music because I'm pretty sure that you know, the people that give a shit about the band care about, you know, the music. So let's just stick to the music.
When you guys, when you did the second album, were you writing a lot of the lyrics as well? I mean, were you and Clint kind of contributing to all that? I mean, talk about the lyrics record. That's
when it started to ramp up a little bit more on that end. I mean, you know, we were never going to be a band that wrote about partying and, you know, hot girls, and it wasn't, you know, Who Let the Dogs Out lyrics were not going to end up in Sevendust songs. And what's that?
I said you didn't have a Motley Crue, girls, 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 or nothing like that.
No, and you know, of course, one of my favorite bands of all time. And again, not at all downing any band that did sing about. I mean, Van Halen, you know, is like, again, one of my favorites of all time. And I love the songs, and I loved them singing about that stuff, you know. But we just weren't going to be that kind of band. I mean, that's okay, you know. I mean, neither is Nine Inch Nails or Tool or Pantera or Megadeth or Metallica. I mean, it's not about that. I mean,
style, definitely.
Yeah. So, you know, and then it started to be, listen, you know, I mean, I think the big thing was that, you know, we had our whole lives to, or at least a few years to get together and write a record. And that included Lejean, you know. I mean, we would sit in there and Lejean come in with words and stuff, and he would sing his words, and we would add if we needed to, and that would be that. And then all of a sudden it was, okay, how long do you guys need off after being on the road for 21 months? And we were like, 2 weeks. They're like, oh yeah, this is great. You know, the guys are all fucked up. Let's, instead of sending them to rehab, let's go ahead and just let them get back in the studio, you know. So so then it was time to write a record, and it was like, first, just to get the music together was one thing. I mean, we're literally sitting in a room jamming together and, you know, grab a riff and go. And then it's like, okay, we think we have a song. Let's write some words. And it's like, we're on a timetable now. So it's like, we're going to all just grab a notepad and just start going, you know, whoever can fill in the blanks, that's going to be good. You know, we never looked at it like it was one guy needed to do everything. And so that was when that started to happen. And then that was, even though we kind of tapped into the three-headed monster of, you know, Clint and Lejean and me doing the three different voices, that was when it really started to get ramped up a little bit. Was on the second record, you know, there was more of that. And then it gradually got more and more to where we even put on the second record, I think that we put on there whose voices you're hearing. So if you look at the lyrics, you'll see, like, the liner notes will have our names and it'll be in a font. And then when you're reading the lyrics, you'll see that font for whoever's singing.
That's cool. I did not know that. Shows how much I read the lyrics while I was listening to the CD.
You can understand these lyrics, Dan.
You know, the funny thing is that that's the beauty of the whole thing, is that if we did write about some really easier to digest stuff and stuff that was to the point a little bit more, I think that it would have been a lot more accessible to people. You know, we refused to go in that direction, which then made it to where it just wasn't, you know, completely blue collar music. I mean, I think that definitely was something that was happening. Not repeating choruses, you know, not doing chant choruses. Repetitive stuff is always a good idea when writing a song. We never do it. You know, it's one of those things. I mean, I don't even know where that came from. I mean, the Black the first chorus doesn't even hit after the first verse. I mean, it was just, everything is never, it's always been this, you know, music shouldn't have rules, you know, so you do what you want. And then as you get going and you get some success, then the label is telling you what to do. And then all of a sudden it's, you know, people coming in telling you we need a chorus right here. And no, that's too much. And you're adding this and that doesn't make sense. And it's like, well, it all worked before. So, but yeah,
and this
anyway, I'm kind of bouncing all over the place, but this is the second record with Toby was, that was when we started to all get involved a lot more.
Is this right before like the new metal wave hit? I mean, were you guys were the record producer and record company? I mean, were they trying to influence you to be more new metal?
I don't. You know, I will say this. I remember the label saying, "You have an opportunity right now. What are you?" And we were like, "We're just groove rock. We're a groove rock band." And they're like, "You got to give it a name." We're like, "Groove rock," and they're like, "No, that isn't going to work. I mean, it's got to have something." I'm like, they used the term metal, and I said, "But we're not really just a metal band." And they're like, "Well, you better come up with something, or they're going to label you. Like the people will label you." And we just said, "We're not fucking coming up with anything. We are who we are. That's it." You know, we like to think that we're semi-unique, which again, you know, that's a little aggressive, but I mean, we just thought we were kind of doing something that was a little bit different. And they said, cool, we do too. What's the name of it? And we just wouldn't give them a name. And then all of a sudden we're being called nu metal. And I'm like, I don't know what the fuck nu metal is, but we don't have any 7 strings. I know that. We're not really rapping, which I thought that was nu metal. I thought rapping and rocking was rock was nu metal. Like, I still to this day don't even know what the fuck nu metal means. I mean, I know that there was nu metal, like, I know that there was a handful of bands that we were around with, and a handful of them are left. But there was, you know, I still don't really understand it, but I know that it either gets loved or it gets hated, and I'm like, damn, you know, we're not nu metal.
Right.
You know?
And everybody says like the rapping thing, and like I'm like, how many rap songs does Korn have? Because Jonathan Davis may rap once or twice here and there, but I mean, he's got a particular style. He's not rapping. You know what I mean? It's
I mean, like Linkin Park had a thing where I thought that was what nu metal was. To this day, dude, like I am like the worst person to ask about this, because to this day I'm like, I don't know what that means. I've heard that Linkin Park is a nu metal band. Okay, well, we don't sound like Linkin Park. So does that mean we're not nu metal? And you know, then they're like, well, Korn's nu metal. I'm like, cool, we don't sound like them either. I love both the bands, but we don't sound anything like either one of them. Are we still nu metal? Like, I don't know what the fuck nu metal is. I don't get it. But we're not either one of those, you know, so...
I think if Lejean is in your band, you're a heavy rock band, which is what you are. Heavy, progressive, and rock.
You know what we are? We're a fucking gent band. That's what we were, anyway. They ended up giving that a name now. But, I mean, that's really what we were. There's a term for that, you know?
Gent, that's awesome.
And they're like calling bands that now. Like, I mean, I've heard that, and now that's getting kind of ripped apart, and I'm like, oh shit. Well, no, we're not that either. You know? Like, I don't know. You know, we're fucking rednecks that play hard rock music. I mean, you know.
It's interesting how, like, so many bands have run from like the nu metal thing. Like, you think like Deftones. I mean, they weren't doing Family Values. They're like, no, we got our own style. We're not gonna be pigeonholed, I guess.
Yeah, well, that was I guess that was it. Was Lincoln or Limp Bizkit was in that pack too. And then when, again, for some reason, which I still have no idea, like Limp Bizkit is a kick-ass band. I mean, that's all there is to it. The musicianship inside the band was always better than most of us. I mean, all of them, you know, Wes, Sam, John, all of them were as good or better than everybody that was going when we were all starting. And then somehow or another, like, that became something that was cool to be mad at, you know? And I'm like, Jesus, you know, just, I don't know,
yeah.
Tough world, man. That music world is tough.
It is, man. It's
getting
like
some success. You better watch it.
Yeah, dude. It's like everybody kind of hate on Limp Bizkit. Everybody kind of hate on Nickelback. It's like, I'm scared to be like, man, I hope nobody hates on me, you know?
We're like sitting in that little under the radar world where, you know, we've been around long enough that our peers, you know, the people that we're close with and all the other bands, we're close with all of them. We respect them. They respect us. We have a great relationship with all the bands. That was something that came really easy for us, you know, starting out. So we made friends really quick, and we kept them. And
yeah, and you guys are so nice, man. Amazing.
Well, thank you, man. I mean, that's there's no real reason, you know. There's like no reason not to be. I mean, there's just because you're in a band that's touring, you know. I mean, that shit doesn't mean anything, you know. It doesn't mean anything about your character. I mean, you need to keep that in check for sure. I can't stand bands with attitudes or somebody that's diva'd out, you know. It just freaks me out.
Especially being stuck in like a tour bus with them, like you said, you know. You got to pick good people to be with because you're going to be stuck with them.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you're going to have to smell each other's farts for however many hours on the road, you know. Like,
who's worse in the band? Farts. It's got to be Clint, probably, right?
he's pretty bad, man. He's pretty healthy, you know. So he's a healthy one, you know. So him and John has definitely got the most volume. I mean, he'll just let it fly.
Well, he is the lead singer.
Crazy. No, not Lejean. John.
Oh man, I misheard you. I'm sorry.
I don't know. I'm pretty sure. I mean, this is no kidding. I'm not even sure if I've ever heard Lejean actually fart. Maybe once or twice ever.
I'm so glad this ended up in the podcast.
Yeah, he's like private. Lejean's a private fella. He doesn't do all that. He's clean. He likes to keep everything nice and everything's clean and smells good and all that. So that's
keeps it in the zone.
Deal. John. Yeah. He likes the zone. I'm the fucking zone killer.
Yeah, that's what Uncle Vinny said. I'm the zone killer.
Yeah. We're like banshees.
I'm gonna try to somehow steer the ship back on course.
Yeah, man. I'm dangerous. I'm a dangerous interview, man.
Right. So you guys were talking about metal, and unfortunately, I was having some technical difficulties during that. I kept trying to chime in, and nothing. But we. Whenever you say, well, we're not really like a straight metal band, metal is still definitely very much in there. I mean, I probably wouldn't have even listened to you guys if, there wasn't, some level of heaviness or extremity. Because I would almost even say calling it hard rock is short selling it, because, I mean, even on your guys' newer albums, there's still a lot of that, double bass, machine gun guitar,
We embrace the metal part of it, I mean, it's no problem, we love that's part of our heritage, as Judas Priest and Iron Maiden and Metallica and all that stuff. I mean, we're metalheads for sure, but we weren't just that. I mean, I had marked it down to what had happened during Animosity, which was we went out and we did shows with Slipknot, and then we went straight from that and we went and we did a tour with Creed. And then we turned around and we did Warped Tour or something. That was the second record. But I mean, it was literally like Warped Tour to Slipknot to Creed. And I just sat there and I looked around and I said, okay, we were just on Warped Tour with Blink-182 and Eminem and Lit and a bunch of these bands. None of them would be cool playing with Creed or Slipknot. And then we went and we played with both of them, and I was like, but then Creed and Slipknot would not be good together either. So then it became this real issue. Then it was like the beginning of that feeling was, oh man, we're so versatile that we can do all of this. And then it started to feel like, wait a minute, we would do the shows and the Creed people would think that the fucking devil just walked in the room and was about to send them straight to hell.
Right.
And then we go out with Slipknot and they would be like, fucking Bon Jovi's on the stage. So I was like, oh man, this is fucking terrible. Like what we thought was so cool is now turned into they're too heavy for Creed and they're not heavy enough for Slipknot. And I was like, damn, we've got a problem here. Like we haven't chosen sides because that's not what kind of band we are. We are diverse. The only other band that I knew that was really like that, even though they probably wouldn't be a great match with all those bands, was the Deftones, and they chose their own path. I think that was the right move, They distanced themselves from a lot of stuff and they went with bands that were completely in another stratosphere, like they would bring bands out with them that, wouldn't be playing with any of the other bands in the genre they were being pigeonholed into. So we instead, would bring out whoever we could find that was starting to make a jump at radio and who would do good, fitting into what we thought was going to match well with what we did. And so that was how it turned out. We headlined for a really, really, really long time because we realized that the only few bands that we could go out and tour with that we would match up well with would be bands that were, the Korns, the Disturbs, the Godsmacks, those bands we could go out and play with, and those people would be like, yeah, I don't know who the hell this is, but, this fits into the genre.
We've argued for years that Deftones is kind of the only band that has their own genre. Everybody calls it nu metal, but nobody sounds like Deftones. Sevendust,
Right.
when I've been asked what genre you are, my answer is always, it kind of depends on what song you're listening to, but the components that make up the band are like taking a rubber band and stretching it in 5 directions to the extreme. 311 is the prime example for me of hybrid music. Sevendust is kind of like heavy hybrid music because nobody is playing the drums the way you are, the guitars the way Clint is, and then singing the way Lejean is, except for Sevendust.
Yeah, I like that. I mean, that would have been useful in 1997.
All you had to do was come to St. Louis and ask for the 12-year-old kid down in the corner, hey, dude, what do we sound like?
This kid knows what's going on.
The 12-year-old had it figured out. I mean, that's pretty much it. I mean, when people would ask us, what are your influences, every guy had a different one. Vinny would say Lynyrd Skynyrd. I would say, 9 Inch Nails or Pantera. Clint would probably say 9 Inch Nails or Pantera or something, and Lejean would say Earth, Wind, and Fire, and John would say Metallica, so it's like everybody had a different thing, and then we were all involved, so obviously that's the only originality you're really going to get. I mean, the originality to me is really just, it's all the same shit, but it's like how you're going to put those ingredients together, I mean, there have been people definitely that play like me and before and after, and there's been people that play all the instruments the way that we do before and after. We haven't done anything very special. It's just you get 5 guys and you put us all into a room, and then it becomes something that it's like, oh, okay, well, those influences, that ingredient, that cake has something in it that I didn't taste yesterday.
With that, with that dichotomy of like, we're not heavy enough for Slipknot, but we're too heavy for Creed, is that why Animosity was so much, it at least to me seemed to be so much more aggressive than the previous 2 albums, which could have just been like a difference in production value, but the songs seemed more energetic and more pissed off overall?
We were definitely pissed off, for sure. We had sold a lot of records and we hadn't made any money, and we were in a position where it didn't look like we were going to ever get out of that situation. So, the whole record starts with, oh God, you piece of shit. Oh God, you piece of shit. You know, and tits on a boar is, something that my nanny used to say, you're useless as tits on a boar. And so that's like where that TOAB is, tits on a boar, and that was directly assaulting people that were in the band's lives at the time, that we were like, how in the fucking world could we just go out there and sell almost 2 million records and play for 40 months almost and literally don't have any money? Like, it's fucking crazy. So that was an aggressive record. It also took us a year to do it because, some of us were a train wreck. So that record cost about $1 million to make because we were living in condos and rehearsing. And it was just like doing a little more having fun than working sometimes. So we had the time. We were able to live with it. We were able to live with the songs as opposed to like some of the more recent records. I mean, we did some of the records in like 3 or 4 weeks, like wrote them and recorded them in 3 or 4 weeks, and we're sitting there laughing going, geez, dude, it took us a year to write and record this record. So, but yeah, that was like the first time we had big production. I mean, and we had told Toby that we wanted something that was a little raw, and we wanted something that was lo-fi, and we actually were trying to fall into that Ross Robinson-esque like Korn world where it was like raw. And then by the time the record came out, it was like, no, big sounding shit is what we want now. And we're like, oh damn, but the record's really not like that. That record is just a raw record. So yeah, when we got to Animosity and Ben Gross got in the room, it was like, this thing's gonna sound big as shit. Are you cool with that? We're like, yep. It was like all the guitars were like, yep, like fucking arena drums. I'm like, and it was big as fuck. You know, I mean, that record was big sounding. And we've led ourselves and we've been led blind into some areas that were just like crazy. I mean, let's go really big sounding. Okay, well, let's go with a big, you know, songwriting help because, you know, I mean, again, we were green. We didn't understand what the hell is this producer doing. We wrote the song. The song sounds exactly the same way that we wrote it. We told, you know, this guy what tones we wanted, and we just paid him a fucking shitload of money. You know, so then we were like, we don't need any of that. And that's like, well, wait a minute. Maybe we need a producer that is like a song guy. So then we get Butch to come in, and Butch is like fucking unbelievable. Yeah, I'm kind of scatting through Animosity, but Butch is the man. Like, Butch walks in and it's like, oh, I got this chorus. Bam, bam, bam. And I'm like, oh, shit. I'm like, and he goes, well, maybe that's a little too much. Why don't we do this? Bam, bam, bam. He's got a numb. I'm like, oh, damn, he just threw 2 choruses out that blow anything I could do away in like 30 seconds. So, I mean, Butch was so funny. It was like we'd go in the room and we'd be working on something like, man, what about that chorus though? And he goes, man, it's going to be great. It's going to be great. And I'll be like, okay, well, we don't have one. He goes, don't worry about it. It's going to be great. You know, like, he was just so cool. You know, like, he had that shit down. And then he blew up. You know, like, he became really big after that record. But yeah, he was, I mean, that's the difference though. You have a guy like Toby's a motivator. Toby's the kind of guy where I could do a really good take on the home record, and he would get on the talkback and tell me, that's the worst take that you've done yet. And I would be thinking to myself, I'm the hardest, you know, I'll critique myself harder than anybody. So I know in my mind, even if I might have slipped somewhere in my mind, I'll be the one that will say before anybody else, that was shit. And he would say that, and I'm like, I thought the take was perfect. I'm like, are you out of your fucking mind? So then I would get like, we would go at it. And then, you know, I smashed snare drums in there. I would kick shit around and leave the studio for 5 minutes, come back, and I'd play harder. And he goes, yeah, that's the one. And then Lejean would go in there, and Lejean would go into the booth, and he'd sing something that, you know, it might be flat as a fucking board, and I'd be like, oh, no, that's a bad note. And he would say, man, that was so amazing. He goes, give me one more of those. That's, like, amazing. And I'm sitting there looking at him going, are you on fucking drugs, dude? Like, you know.
You're like, I need to go in there and hold his face.
Yeah, I'm like, but the method to his madness is he knew, you know, Morgan is the aggressive one. If I push Morgan will do better when he's angry. And then if I coddle this guy, or if I treat this guy with a little bit more of a kid glove feel, he's going to be confident and cool, and he's going to give me what I need. So I learned everything from these guys. You know, there was that. There was us going into Animosity again. I still don't know what the fuck I'm doing. And I go in there, and Ben is like, we're doing pre-pro for the record, and we go through like praise. And I'm playing it, and he stops, you know, he goes, okay, that's really good. He goes, Morgan, why don't we simplify that verse a little bit? You know, let's just back it up a little, just like, you know, give me a little bit of this, you know. And I'm like, okay. So we do it, and he goes, yeah, that sounds great. That's perfect. I'm like, okay. We go to the next song. He's like, yeah, man, it's sounding great. There's Morgan, why don't we simplify that chorus there? That kick drum's kind of flying around a little. Why don't we just simplify that chorus a little? And I'm like, all right. Go to the third song. Morgan, and before he could even say, I'm like, are you gonna fucking say anything to anybody else, dude? Like, do you even know how I play drums? Like, you're fucking shutting me out of I'm not comfortable. So I like attacked him, and next thing you know, he doesn't say anything to me again about playing drums for the rest of the record. Nothing.
Jeez. And
then after he gets to bass, he's like, now he's tearing Vinny apart. And then he gets to John and Clint, and he's kind of tearing them apart. And I'm going, oh. So he was just going to go like song by song with me, and then go to the next guy. And okay, so now I'm the asshole, you know, which I was. I didn't know what was going on. I hadn't had it done like that before. But I'm sorry. I'm an asshole. You know, I didn't know what to do. So, you know, that's his thing was sonics. You know, Ben was the kind of guy that would say, that chorus is eh. And I'd be like, what do you got? And he'd be like, I don't really have anything. I'm just telling you, I don't like it. And then, so I'm like, that would be the kind of thing that we wanted to, like, kill each other in the band. If somebody, I mean, it was so stupid because that can easily be the case. You don't have to be a songwriter to tell somebody that you don't like something. But if somebody in our band would come into the room and go, man, I don't like that chorus. Okay, what do you got? Well, I got nothing. Well, then shut up. Like, that's how we were to each other.
Yeah,
exactly.
And then, you know, and then Ben comes in and he says that, and we're like, oh, like, you're about to get fucking choked out. You know, like, it was.
I don't like it. I don't know what you should do to fix it, but I know I don't like it.
Yeah, that was it. So, I mean, but that was what I learned, you know. It went from guys that were, you know, like Toby, who were very motivating in knowing personalities, and then you got guys like Ben, who is, you know, I don't even really think we got everything from Ben because I fucking was an asshole to him, but he made that record sound better than any record, you know, we had ever done. And then you go to Butch, who is like, you guys can do all the craziness you want to do, but this song is going to be a great song. And he was a tunesman, you know, he came in there and could make, you know, could shine a turd quicker than anybody. I mean, we'd come in there with something average, and he would come in and sing something, and it would be like, oh, okay, you got us on the path, we'll take it from here. So, you know, Butch is just a songwriting fool. So that was like our 3 in a row, you know, going from Home to Animosity to Seasons.
I think most people consider Animosity to be your best record, but they say that Home is their favorite record. My favorite record is Seasons, which is When I Found You.
That's a great album, man. Like, that's my second favorite.
But before we get there, I have to ask, because this record has Angel Sun on it.
Yeah.
What can you tell me about Lynn?
Oh, I mean, like, that was the first person that we had lost as a band, you know, that we were really close to, because that band they were just like us, but from the West Coast. I mean, we were the same. Personality-wise, we were very alike. We were both pretty out of control, very aggressive, but very respectful, and nobody wanted to fuck with us. Like, no bands wanted to take us out. You know, we ended up going out with each other because nobody wanted to go out with either one of us. So we would just go out and play, sometimes in front of 50 people, 100 people, and we didn't care. We loved it. We basically got in the buses, and back then, you know, it was like shit, RVs and vans, and we would get in them and just drive and just tour. I mean, we were touring the whole country over and over for months, and just keep playing every day, and flip-flop going on, you know, laughs back and forth. And I really didn't want to go on after them. I mean, they would just devastate a crowd. So they made us who we were. I mean, we felt like we were a good live band, and then we saw them and went, oh shit, you better fucking eat some more Wheaties, because they were really tearing shit apart. And so then it was like, okay, we're going to go after it hard. And I think that was what really did it for us. I mean, because then there was no Slipknots. There was none of that was happening. Even back then, there was no Godsmacks or Disturbs or Shinedowns or any of that. None of that was happening. You know, this is before all that. There was Machine Head, of course. You know, I'm not talking about like the Megadeths and Metallicas that had already paved the way. Just like bands that had come out around then was like, you know, Machine. I mean, I remember coming off the Roar tour, and it was like, you know, we're playing with the Nixons and Sponge and shit like that, which was, you know, again, very cool, just not at all our genre. And we were just fucking mutilating people, you know. I mean, we felt like we were bullying people. And then here comes Snot, and it's like, ooh, this is somebody we can't push around at all. So it was fun, you know. We would smack each other around every night, and then we would sleep. Half of us would be on one vehicle, and half would be on the other. So it was like half Snot, half Sevendust on both vehicles. I hung out with Lynn and Jamie, and then and Sonny a lot, and then Clint would hang out with Mikey a lot. So, but Lynn was, you know, obviously a brother and really, really close with us. And so when he passed away, and the song was written for the Straight Up record, that was during the Home record. That was actually during the writing of the Home record. And I know that we were on tour because our tour manager, Dennis, at the time, came back and said, I just got a phone call that Lynn died in a car wreck. And it was like So it was the end of the first record, very end of our first record touring was when we found out that he had passed away. And then during, after we had recorded Home was when they had come in and said, let's do, the Straight Up record. And they asked if, they wanted us to be involved. So me and Clint and LeJean went to the studio, and Clint had that piece of music, and if you really listen to it, you can hear there's a song called Insecure on the Home record that's just really an intro to Reconnect. And it's basically Angel Sun. Like, that's the song. Like, that riff is Angel Sun. It's the intro. So when it was time, that was originally going to be a song, and then when the Straight Up thing came about, then Clint put that music together, and him and LeJean had some vocals that they put together in the studio, I think. And I was there, and we did it, and then the fucking label wanted us to put it on Animosity, and we didn't want to, because
I was going to ask you, why wasn't Sonny included if it was something that you wrote together?
Sonny was in there. Sonny was in there when we did it when we did it for Straight Up. Sonny was in there. Sonny was in there. Mikey was in there. Tuma was in there. The only two people that weren't in the room were Lynn and Jamie. Lynn, obviously, and Jamie wasn't there. But Sonny and Mikey were in there. They all played on it. Sonny wasn't involved in the video because, well, you're going to have Sonny, so you can have Sonny. I know why, but I don't get into all that shit. Sonny's my dog, and I'll just let him answer that.
How's he doing, by the way?
Sonny's awesome. Sonny's doing great. Yeah. I mean, I miss Sonny, and I love Sonny, and he's, that group of people, even though we don't see them all the time, and Lynn is gone, that for sure is that's the closest we ever were to anybody in the industry, and it happened right away. I remember meeting them in New York when we weren't even touring together, and we just happened to be in the same city, and we met them on, like, the radio people that were working for us. Snot's in town, and their people told them, and they said, we want to meet them. It was like we loved each other right away. I mean, we met each other in the street and ran to each other, hugging each other, and had never met before. So we had a love affair with that band. I mean, that band was and will always be the special band for us, because we did it together when no one would give either one of us a shot. But so then we go to Animosity, and record label says we want to put Angel Sun on the record, and we're like, we already did our tribute to Lynn. We've already done the song. There's already been a video, and we already put him and Dobbs in the Home record. The song's already been done. And our label president was pissed that we had written a song that was not going to be on our record, so he wanted his shot at it. And we're like, you can't release that song. The song's already been out there. Can't re-release the song. So he didn't really re-release it, but he wanted it on the record, and he forced it onto the record. And then we ended up in Canada doing a video for it that was actually, like, really fucked up and eerie, and it was obvious that it was, it could pertain to Lynn, and it wasn't cool to me. I thought that doing it in a hospital and having a mother, running into the hospital while her son is, been in a situation and is I just thought the whole thing was fucking tasteless, to be honest with you. I mean, I regretted that immediately, and there was really not much we could do about it, because at the time, we were slaves to the fucking system, and that was the way it was going to be.
I think the campfire said it all, right?
Yeah, that was the good shit, and even that was, you can ask Sonny about that again, because I respect Sonny immensely, and his decision not to be involved in that part of it was, I have no idea where he would think about that right now, but knowing him, I don't know. I mean, I missed him being there, but I totally respected his decision not to be. And then I ended up in a situation, like I said, fucking recording and playing a song on a record that we'd already done that was built for someone in particular, and before you knew it, we're fucking filming videos that are separate from the campfire video. And it's just, you know, I don't know, that what was supposed to be such a beautiful thing dedicated to a beautiful person, you know, ended up being yet another way that the people trying to make money could go in there and suck some more blood out of the system, and it was just fucking tasteless. So, but yeah,
that can be pretty offensive.
That's that.
Yeah, like when somebody's just again like trying to just capitalize on something that, you know, really didn't exist for that reason, you know.
Yeah, I mean, the song ended up taking on a life of its own, you know, at that point, and, you know, people start passing away and they start dedicating that song to them. And, you know, we've done it plenty of times live to people and for people and stuff like that. And so the song's gotten a whole lot of mileage out of it. And unfortunately, you know, it was written for our brother. So
I will tell you, it's a good song. It deserves the credit it gets for being as meaningful as it can be. I honestly don't know what to say at that point, but Snot, I thought, was a hidden treasure that I knew about for years.
Oh, yeah.
And again, teenage ignorance. I didn't know that's what Angel Sun was about until Southside Double Wide.
Yeah.
So once I learned that, I said, oh, these guys used to run with Sevendust. That's even cooler, because then I find the Snot Live record, which has Lynn in the raw, and the Straight Up record, which I like. I don't think all the songs are great, but I don't think the purpose of the record was to write the great songs. It was to be there for Lynn, so I'm thankful for it.
Yeah, definitely.
You ready for Seasons, Dan? Scott's back with us.
I was born ready. Yeah, we lost Scott for a couple minutes.
Hang on. Here we go.
Y'all.
Hang on. Here we go.
Because Scott thinks Fozzie's.
Yeah. I fell asleep at Animosity, but that's the wrong album to fall asleep on.
Well, you know, Scott, you know, we just know that Scott loves Fozzie more than he loves Sevendust, so, you know, we got it all
He's on his way. I can hear him. He's on his way to Fozzie right now.
Oh, yeah, dude, I can see him on video. He's in a fucking car heading to the show. He's got all his Sevendust vinyls in his lap. It's hilarious.
Right when we tried to Bluetooth, I was like, no.
Yeah, man, awesome. Home. This was just like
we're at Seasons, dude.
But now,
not home. Sorry, Seasons. My bad. Drunk. I've had a few now.
No, I have a huge question. I'm sorry, man. When you guys did Animosity and when you did Seasons, you guys had like songs that you cut for movie soundtracks, like Leech. And I think that was on Freddy vs. Jason. Amazing song.
Yeah.
That's like one of my favorite Sevendust songs, man. What made you guys not decide to put it on the record?
It was, again, zero to do with us. Zero. Like, the label at that point, there was such... they had so much control that... And, you know, and again, we were still learning. I mean, we were... believing back then, I mean, the system back then was completely different than it is now. I mean, with the internet and streaming and, you know, I mean, we were like the little engine that could, you know, we had a label that did spend some money, but we were going up against the big dogs, you know. I mean, if you look at every other band in our genre that was succeeding back then, they were all going off of majors and we were on an indie. So we were beating, you know, bands that were on majors. Well, some of those bands were surpassing us with big money. And I mean, talking, you know, buying end caps at, you know, at Tower Records and billboards and shit everywhere and spending big money to promote. And we would promote and then we would stop promoting. And that was the idea from the label's end, was we have this much money to spend. We'll front load it. We'll see what we get. And then we'll do our best at radio.
I didn't mean to jump right back into Animosity, but you guys also in Seasons, you had a couple of like Japanese songs like Rain and Number One and Coward. Those songs are amazing.
Yeah.
That must be hard cutting those from the you know, cutting them here and making Japanese versions of them.
Yeah, that kind of sucked because it was actually like, I mean, that was when I started to really get into writing as many vocal parts as I could. Like, I went in and actually recorded Coward, Number One, and one other song just by myself. Like, I went in with John, and I'm not even sure if Clint was there. I mean, he would had to have been there, I think, but I know that for sure me, John, and Vinny would go in and track that stuff with Sean Grove, and then I would go in and just sing all the vocals. I'd write the lyrics and then go and sing the parts. And then, some of the songs, some of them made the record, but, John would go back in and sing and put his thing on it.
There's so many good songs on this record. There's Enemy, there's Disease, Seasons, Broken Down. I'm not just reading the track listing, I swear. Burned Out's on here, Suffocate, Face to Face. I love this record, I really do.
Every song could be a single. I mean, you're thinking about like Gone, man. That's such an amazing song. Burned Out, Suffocate. Just like you said, it's like every song sounds like a radio hit. It's amazing.
Well, we were either going to do it or Butch was going to do it, and that was just the deal. I mean, it just became that where it was like we knew that the bar was going to be set pretty high on writing hooks because Butch was there. So it was like, you're not going to phone this shit in anywhere. You're not going to come with your first thing, and just think that's going to be the way it goes. Like, it's going to go around the table. And knowing that Butch had something in his pocket that was probably going to beat whatever we did, instead of it making us lazy, it made us work harder. And I think he made us better songwriters, without question, because his level was already way up.
Was Clint pretty burned out at this point? I mean, this is right before he left. I mean, could you see signs of like wear and tear, like he's about calling it quits? I mean,
I don't think that it was happening during the writing and recording of that record. I think that it happened afterwards. And then, like I said, I mean, we've all had our battles and done our stuff, and some more than others, some not much at all. But I can only speak for myself and telling you that I had some decent problems that probably should have been getting addressed on and off, through all that time. And, Clint had as well. And he's made it, he's made it, public. He's been sober for a long time, and I'm like, he's like a fucking champion to me. I mean, I love him dearly. And he's, no question, me and him think the same way when we're writing. So he's always been really easy to write with. I really have a good time writing with John as well. Like, we can knock stuff out really quick. Melodically, me and Clint are really dialed, and I think rhythmically me and John are. But yeah, I think that right around the end of that was when it was probably, there was a peak problem going on, and there were a lot of people that were coming at Clint and telling him that he could do better, and telling him that they had a better opportunity and things like that. And he was, to say he was vulnerable was a fucking understatement. I mean, so yeah, he got fucking taken from us, and I mean, it all worked out. But yeah, it was a really tough time. I mean, that was an extra tough time.
I definitely think it's a bad day anytime a band loses a member. In 2005, though, you were down Clint, Sonny was in the band, and you did what I believe is the first and only self-produced record, Next.
Well, no, we've done a bunch of them self-produced since then, but Next was like the first one. No, I mean, Sean Grove was there, and he had, absolutely had produced as much as, for sure, some other people that had gotten producer credit. So, I mean, I think that I'm pretty sure, like, I haven't looked at that in a long time, but I would hope that it says produced by Sevendust and Sean Grove. But either way, he was, Sean Grove is another saint, that just was totally there and totally motivating, and was involved in doing I think the one thing that Sean Grove hates more than anything in the world is that he was never able to work on a record that Clint was on. because he's a guitar guy and he loves Clint and he likes the trinkets. He likes all that extra counter melody shit, and Clint is the fucking greatest on the planet at it. So I think that was the thing that Sean really was bummed out about, but Sean killed it on those records, you know. Some were better than others, but it had nothing to do with him. I mean, you can probably go through these 3 records really quick, and I'm sure Scott wouldn't mind either.
Right.
No,
I mean,
love
it was like, you know, the next record was like the hangover from Clint. There was still, we had actually been writing for that record with Clint.
Oh, wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah, it started that way. I mean, the song Brother on the Dark New Day record was another song that we had actually been screwing around with at Soundcheck.
Wow.
So when I heard that, I wanted to fucking kill people. You know, I was like, wait a minute, dude. Like I jammed that song, you know, like, and it's your first single, you know, I was like, oh man, if that song goes big, I'm going to be pissed. But there were songs that, you know, we had started screwing around with when, you know, this was all happening. I mean, like the Dark New Day thing, when we were writing Next and still kind of touring the end of Seasons, that was when the infidelity was happening. You know, that was when, you know, we would be like off for a little while, and then Clint would go somewhere and he would track guitars for the Dark New Day thing. And I think it kind of started out, you know, the whole thing was like this fucking snowball where it started out as just a side thing, and then it turned into this could really be a thing, and then managers started to get involved and money started to get involved, and we were in a position where we were stuck at a record company that was fucking eating us alive. And so I mean, I don't even know if I would blame him for going at the time, but yeah, that was so we go in and did Next, and the hangover of it was, hey, we still have some ideas here that were being written with him around. So I think you can kind of hear that there's still a melodic side to that was
absolutely
left over.
Yeah.
Yes,
and
I love
then you get
Failure, that big on melodic. I love that song. Sorry.
Yeah, and that was like, you know, shit. That was when me and John started to go completely rogue. You know, it was like John would fly to Atlanta, and he would stay at my house, and we would like go to this Blockbuster and sit in this parking lot, because I had written like the lyrics to a few songs there, and a few melodies, like lyrics and melodies to a few songs back in the day, like Enemy I wrote in there, and a few other songs. And we had been doing this for a while, where John would come when we were doing records in Atlanta. He would come and stay at my house, and then after we would be done with the night, me and him would sit down. Like I had written the chorus to Broken Down that we were having trouble with, and I didn't even know it was any good, because me and John got drunk that night and recorded it, and John let Butch hear it the next day. It was about to get bounced from the record, and Butch was like, who the fuck wrote that? He goes, Morgan wrote it last night drunk. He was like, dude, that's the chorus. Wow. So that was like, me and John would do that kind of thing. So we get to, I'm kind of speeding on past Next a little bit, but when we were doing Next, that was the beginning of that rogue thing, where it was just like, you're here, I'm here, so we're just going to sit in this parking lot and we're going to write these songs. So we would sit there and just play it for a minute, be silent, sit there with a notepad and just knock out words and kind of hum some melodies, and then go back to the house and kind of hum them out, and then get to the studio the next day and sing them and be like, is that good enough? Okay, cool, it's good, let's go on. So that was working for a while. That worked through Next, and then we got to Animosity, and I was just like on a mission, you know, where it was like, these fucking songs are saying something to me, and it feels like I just want to talk about me. And right now I want to fucking kill somebody, and then I probably want to do something bad to myself. I mean, I was probably not really that healthy in the mind at the time. And so that record just started to get it started to turn into like this concept record, and it was really starting to freak me out that I was writing everything about me. And then I was handing it over, and LeJean was getting it and looking at it like, this ain't me, dude. You know, like, I'm not down with torturing this motherfucker that I don't know that you're singing about, you know. And he did an admirable job, you know, singing my life story there for a minute. But I mean, that was kind of like when that record was over and John left, because we had spent a few months together every day, you know, doing the same routine, and being that I was not really in a great place, it was pretty awesome to, you know, to have him there. And then I remember the last day, I just remember him like leaving and from the studio, and I got in my car and was driving home and pulled off the side of the road and just like fucking collapsed, you know, just emotionally just broke down, because I was like, okay, I've been going through this therapy for the last 2 months, you know, with my dude right next to me, and now I'm being left alone. And tomorrow I have to just deal with it, you know. Like, I had been, you know, writing these songs, and we'd been recording this and creating this, and it was really therapeutic, and I didn't realize how important it was and how needed it was, just, you know, selfishly for me at the time, until, you know, it was over. So that was pretty heavy. And then, you know, we just kept firing records out. I mean, to be honest with you, it was this thing where we had a fucking another monster of a motherfucker that we were dealing with, and we had been fucking robbed on that end. And so we fired that shit, and we're like, we gotta go fucking do another record, dude. Like, we need to go. We knew that we could make a little bit of money and have another way to tour, because at this point we're signed to our own label through ADA, which, you know, let's get real. It was called Seven Brothers Records, and the only records that Seven Brothers Records ever put out were Sevendust records. You know, it wasn't a fucking record company. You know, it was an imprint that we were able to use to go and have somebody distribute our records at a percentage, and, you know, then we could use their infrastructure for a fee, you know. So we were flipping the bill for everything. So the fact that we were able to stay alive for 3 records is fucking crazy. Even more, because actually we were with, you know, that type of setup where we were paying for everything. We were in that setup for every record up until the last one, like from Next until we got to the last record. Until we got to All I See Is War, we were basically on our own. So, you know, not to say that the people that were working with us weren't fantastic and great people. It had nothing to do with that. It had to do with the fact that we weren't a record company. We didn't have the money to be able to reinvest in our product and be able to pay the bills. So it turned into this thing of better do another record, you know, and before you know it, you know, it's like, dude, I got nothing else to say. Like, I don't have any fucking songs left. So John, you know, writes all these riffs, and I come in, and we're all sitting in a room trying to put together songs, and we're doing Hope and Sorrow. And, like, there's like 3 songs on that thing that I can really deal with. You know, it just wasn't fucking happening. It was like, I've lost, you know, I don't have it. Like, I'm tired. And I think John was too. I think that it was like, he was the primary riff writer at that point. I think that we both kind of looked at each other, and I was just like, dude, I need Clint back in this band, like, fucking now. You know, like, it has to happen. This is not a Sonny thing. Sonny is fucking unbelievable. I mean, easiest dude on earth to love. Great guitar player. Really good songwriter, too. Like, there was nothing wrong with Sonny. It had zero to do with that. Like, it wasn't that at all. It was that Clint he was our dude.
Right.
You know, Clint was our brother, and Sonny was our first cousin, you know, and we knew what we needed to do to be able to fire this train back up. And Clint had gotten sober and was doing well. And So yeah, once we got done with that Hope and Sorrow record, we hadn't even toured the fucking thing yet. And it was like, there's too much going on right now. Like, there's too much talking going on right now. I mean, this is going to turn into something that's going to be weird, and, you know, we couldn't hold the record back. So it was like, we're going to do it now. We're going to pull the trigger now, which, again, is just typical fucking Sevendust, where it's like, okay, so you got your original guitar player back in the band, and the day after you announce that he's back in the band, you release a CD with the guy that replaced him that tracked on that record with his picture in it. It's so fucking wrong and twisted and dysfunctional and fucked up. You know, there was nobody that was like taking care of us that had any clue. Like, they didn't give a shit. Yeah, sounds good. Like, let's go. You know, just dumb. So we released that record, could not wait to get done with that cycle. Like, could not wait to hurry up and be done with it so that we could get into the studio with Clint and do Cold Day Memory.
And do what you wanted to do.
And then, like, you know, and have, and you know, I think that it worked. I love that record. I mean, I love that record. I was probably, you know, the second most fucked up I'd ever been, maybe the most fucked up I'd ever been in my life doing that record. I'd gone through a divorce and, you know, really kind of just fucked up, you know, what would have been a really cool thing, you know, to go in with my boy and have us put this record together and kind of have my shit together. So here Clint walks into the studio and he's sober and driven and excited, and he's got his band back and he's ready to put his shit together. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to go to the bar. I'll see you guys when I try not to wake you up. Yeah, I mean, there's little pieces in there that show me not looking too presentable, you know. But at the end, yeah, man, it was about one of those a day. So it's like, you know, but we got through it, and the record, you know, somehow or another, I became a functioning drinker that was able to, like, go to bed at 7 a.m. and wake up at noon and do what I had to do, and then go back out at midnight or 1 and do that until 6 a.m.
Is that hard like that?
No, I didn't hear you. Was it hard with what?
But was it hard when you were going through that situation and having Clint, you know, your brother that's complete opposite end, being sober? I mean, was he trying to, like, talk to you and try to, I mean, was he coaching you along? I mean, were you guys tight?
No. We were very close, but Clint was, you know, in all honesty, I mean, with 100% transparency here, I don't remember. I really don't. I mean, I remember somebody called me the King of Chicago, and I said, I like that name. And then that stuck for a while, you know. That stuck to where, I mean, it was just crazy. It was so flipped, you know, where now Clint was, you know, he had John and him were really focused, and the other guys were doing, I mean, Vinny kind of came to be like my crutch. Vinny was like, all right, I'll hold this dude's hand while he fucking implodes real quick. And the other guys, you know, went on with their business and did their work and saved the record and made it a really good record. I mean, I contributed. It's not like I was gone and then I came in and threw up on the drums and said, fix it. You know, I mean, I put my time in and did it. But you can hear it in Clint's voice when he's doing the videos. He goes, when Morgan's here, he's here. You know, when he does that King of Chicago thing, you know, he deserves it. When really, I think I fucked him. You know, I think that he was like, damn, man, you know, you got me back in this and I'm happy to be here and excited. And then you kind of deserted me. And to be honest with you, I've kind of deserted him on every record since. You know, this is the first record I think that we're about to do that we're leaving to go and do on Tuesday. It's probably the first record that I'm really excited to do in like a decade or more. You know, like my thing is that I go through this personal horse shit right before we're going to do a record. And that's been documented too, where Clint or somebody will be like, you know, it never fails, man. We get ready to do a record and Morgan's got some sort of fucking thing going on, whether it's a divorce or, you know, something that's going to send me off the rails. And this is like the first record that we're doing in forever that I feel good, you know, that I don't have any like personal issues to deal with. I mean, I'm psycho as fuck, so obviously there's going to be some issue there, but I don't have anything new.
Do you think you, as a band, not just you, but everybody, did you all encounter burnout and just keep working?
Oh, God, yeah. Oh, yeah, 100%.
Because it's your job.
I don't know. I'm not like extra, like, I try to not stir the fucking pot too much or make, you know, I've kind of removed myself from a lot of interviews and stuff because I will speak too much of the truth. But here's the reality of it, and I'll probably get all the shit for this when it goes somewhere, but the fact is that anybody that wants to tell you that they were enjoying what was going on is a fucking liar. I mean, it was real easy. Here's the deal. What do you want to do? You can't pay your fucking mortgage. I don't know. I guess I'm going to go and do what I do. That's a whole different thing than we've got this production ready for this really cool tour that we're going to do. I mean, we were doing tours for a while where, I mean, we were going through and playing the same fucking places over and over and over because they would pay us the most money. And it was like, you know, that's crazy. You know, I mean, let's be honest. When the lights go off and you get on the stage and you play the show and those people are there, that feels good. There was nothing about that was like pulling teeth. It wasn't like that. It wasn't like, I don't want to play concerts. I don't want to do that anymore. Or you know, I mean, anybody that's in the business will tell you that if you've done 10 shows in 11 days, you don't want to play the next day. Your body's just beat up. But I mean, with, you know, relatively speaking, it was fine to play concerts for the people that were supporting us. And I remember looking at people that had been to every show that we had played in that town. And I remember turning around and looking at somebody, it might have been Clint, and saying, I feel so fucking bad for them because they love us so much that they're just not going to not show up. They're just going to be here. And they look like they're exhausted. They look like they're so tired of fucking hearing this same set and these same songs. They look like, oh man, will you guys just go fucking home for a minute already? You know, so that we can go on with our lives. I mean, that's what it felt like to me. And I had people that I was close enough with that told me, they were like, man, you guys need a break. And we were like, dude, we've just gotten robbed again. We have no money. We're fucking broke. Like, we literally thought that we're making this giant chunk of money one day, and then 3 days later we find out, no, you're not making any money, and you owe over $100,000 each.
Oh my God.
You know, and it's like, wait a minute. And that happened more than once. So, you know, people like to keep perception all dialed in, like, you know, it's all fucking good. And I have like very few gripes left in my bag. You know, I've busted my ass at music for a long time. I've sacrificed more than I ever wanted to sacrifice when it comes to my children and not seeing them. And the big thing is that a lot of times we made bad decisions. We trusted the wrong people, and then we got burned, and that kept us away from our kids more. So it wasn't the fact that the burnout from having to play. It was the burnout of like, I'm losing my fucking marriage here. Like I've lost my marriage because I can't work on it while I'm out here. You know, my kid is like starting to rebel and I can't do shit about it. Or, you know, I mean, all kinds of shit was going on. There's shit going on left and right. It was so fucking brutal. And all I could think was, you know, don't you dare say anything about it, because God forbid you tell anybody that you're a fucking normal human being You know, especially in this beautiful world of social media where the fucking keyboard warrior comes out and says, I'd trade lives with you any day. And I'm like, oh, yeah.
Go ahead.
Fucking do it.
You know what you say.
Yeah, go ahead, asshole.
Because it's like, you know, the hour and a half, like I said, I'm blessed, man. I'm so lucky to be able to be going to Orlando in 3 days to record another record, getting paid to play music, finally finding a home with Rise that is like a place where, you know, we were treated better than we deserve probably, and with a manager who cares about the well-being of us as human beings with, you know, I mean, it's just a weird thing. It's like, damn, man. I mean, I got to admit, I've very much in my life been a guy that unfortunately has looked at the glass half empty, because it's just been more than half empty on many occasions. But it's nice to look at it and see it like, damn, man, this is a good position, you know, like we're in a really good spot. I wish I wasn't fucking 95 years old. You know,
Right.
I mean, I found something else to bitch about. You know, it's like, it's all great, but I wish I wasn't old.
Hey, Morgan, do you have, when you guys are going to Tampa, do you have pre-production? Do you guys still work with Corey Lowry at all?
No, we did some stuff with him on the last record, but Corey's extra busy, you know. Corey's now in Seether and all that, so yeah, Corey was used on a bunch of stuff. We'd always have Corey here in Atlanta, so I would usually, I mean, our pre-pro writing sessions usually go like, LeJean and John come to Atlanta, and, you know, we sit in a room with Vinny, and we, you know, John had some riffs, and we put together a few songs. And then in this, like, me and LeJean had gone to St. Louis and sat with Clint, and we put together, you know, Clint had some songs, and we kind of screwed around with those songs. And so on this record, me and LeJean and John went to Illinois and worked on like 4 or 5 ideas up there. And now me and Clint are going to go Tuesday, and we're going to have like 4 days for me and him to work together and work up, you know, some stuff that he's got brewing. And then the other guys will get there, and we'll put together what we got.
It's awesome, man.
And hopefully it sounds better than shit.
Sounds better than mud recorded.
Do you like recording in Tampa?
Well, yeah, well, in Orlando is where we're going.
Orlando, I'm
yeah,
sorry.
I really like it down there. I mean, you know, last record, I'm going through a fucking breakup, train wreck, you know, just about every night I'm lit. And so, you know, not funny, but the weird thing is that I did the right thing, and I finally just didn't go and get myself into another relationship right away, because I really was kind of going almost seamless, you know, girl to girl for the last like 20 years. So it's like that happened actually like right before that happened in like March. And then I think that we were in there to record the record in, I want to say September or October. So I've been single still, you know, through that whole thing. So maybe that's the problem, is that, you know, I'm a shitty fucking boyfriend. I just need to be on my own, you know, because now I'm just like, this is great, you know. I mean, now I can go in there and I can focus on my work. My daughter is in college and ruling the earth, and I don't have to fucking, you know, other than worrying about your child like you would any other day, no matter how old they are. It's not that. My son is the easiest. You know, his situation is great, so I can focus on the work and get back here often. It's close enough where I can get home, and Elvis is absolutely awesome to work with, and his house is like a fucking castle, and that's where we live. So, you know, I mean, what's not to love? I'll be with my dudes, and I will go ahead and live in a castle for 2 months.
And you'll have the game on in the studio the whole time.
Yeah, right. Elvis is like fucking Howard Hughes, man. I mean, it's so funny because there's me who is like, you know, let's document this shit. You know, let's document everything. Let's get cameras everywhere, you know. I want them to see all the idiotic shit. And then there's like, LeJean is like, no way, dude. And then there's Vinny, who is like, no way. And Clint, who probably would be like, you know, if you want to document, it has to be the right guy. Like, we've had some really good people that have done that kind of stuff for us. But now it's gotten to the point where it's funny. All the guys that are like responsible and have wives and all that shit, like they're totally cool with like, let's just get the work done and do this responsibly. And I'm like, let's fucking have a fucking party bus or something, you know, and bring cameras in there to film it.
Let's have a fucking
like,
kegger,
Jesus
yeah.
Christ, dude. Yeah, you know, they're looking at me like, dude, fucking 80 years old. Go to bed.
Oh, man. Whew. What fucking album are we on? Let's see.
I think we got to Cold Day Memory,
Okay.
and then we went all the way to All I See Is War.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's my favorite. Well, that's the most. I say that's my favorite one. It's the last one to listen to. I listened to it today while I was working. Much to the okay. So this is funny. Okay, so I'm listening to the last two records while I'm at work today, installing a garage door, and the customer comes out after like 3 or 4 tracks, and he's like, "Hey, buddy, we don't really have like screaming metal in our home." And I was like, "Oh, well, you know, it's not the home. You know, you don't live in the garage." And
Right.
he made me turn it off. He made me turn it off.
Man.
I was like, "Damn!" Like, I can't be a dick, you know, because I gotta get paid, right? So,
Don't you feel like a bitch?
Oh, I felt like a bitch. Yes, 100%. Yeah. And like, it was just so funny. But like, that record was, I mean, it like, is it generic to say that like, oh my God, this just breathes new life into the whole thing?
There definitely are moments on there, you know. I mean, I do believe that this is going to be a different record. I think that just the way that everything is, I think that the label has kind of opened up and said, listen, we'd like you guys to be who you are at moments, at least. You know, like there's this 3-headed thing that was the thing that kind of got us. It didn't get us noticed. I mean, I'm sure LeJean's voice is the thing that got us noticed, but it's definitely a thing for us that helps keep us a little bit different, you know, the 3 different voices thing. And so I think we're going to really focus on that. I know at least some of the songs that me and Clint are going to work on are going to be driven around that. And that's kind of bringing it back to Animosity a little bit. Maybe a little bit more straightforward, you know. I mean, Clint can get extremely frustrated and bored in, you know, in fucking caveman metal. And that's like where we start to kind of, I hate to use the term prog out a little bit, you know, but get a little bit more challenging to ourselves. You know, I think we might focus a little bit more on not caring that much about whether anybody thinks that, you know, we're talented enough. I think that we've done what we're going to do. I think that the idea is to build a vibe on this record, kind of cinematic and big, and not pay attention to the rules too much. I mean, again, this is really more of just me and Clint talking lately on the stuff that me and him are going to screw around with in the next few days. But I think that's really the idea, you know, it's hard to, you know, I don't think we're ever going to like sit here and be, you know, idiots and say we're going to try to completely reinvent ourselves after 20 years and, you know, 12 or 13 records, however many it is. But that record was like, I mean, Kill the Flaw was probably the one that we challenged ourselves the most on. That one, to this day, I listen to it and I just laugh at some of the drum parts. I'm like, that ain't me, dude. I mean, that's me, but I don't do that. That's me trying to be in the game with all these kids that are beating the shit out of me every day on the internet. You know, like, I can't do it. Like, I'm not that kind of guy. That's John Bonham wouldn't play that shit, and by all means, I am not putting myself in his fucking category at all, but as a point, he wouldn't play that shit. And probably couldn't, and probably wouldn't want to, you know, but somehow or another, I felt like I needed to try to challenge myself in there to say, you know, I can do that right there. You know, I can play that too, guys. You know, and it's like, come on, dude. Your grandpa. Just fucking do your shit and go home.
I don't know, man. I don't know many drummers that keep the show going the way that you do live. I hesitate to say one name because I know you've had multiple drum techs through the years, but if something goes wrong, you don't stop playing. And short story, I'm blind as fuck. When you're standing up trying to fix a pack on your back to get the headset running correctly, and I hear the cymbals moving, I start looking for hands underneath you, and I realize that you transition songs differently than probably anybody I've ever seen. Because if you're not playing, your tech's playing. And that doesn't include the triggers that you've used for effects over the years. Just like I want an 808 for this part of the song, so I'm just going to trigger something. You're the only person that does that.
Well, there's some dudes out there that are taking everything to another level these days. But like I said, I mean, I'm just like, I think I've come at peace with everything at this point. I think at this point, I'm like, you know what? I know my shortcomings and I accept them in most every aspect of my life. You know, I've definitely been the player in a lot of my relationship issues. You know, I like to say, can you believe she did that to me? I used to say that all the time. And then I'm like, you know, I obviously played all into that. I had a major play in all of it. You know, when it comes to success of the band and whether it should have been more or it should have been less, or I looked at it now and I'm like, you know, we used to say, can you believe that fucking guy robbed us? Can you believe they did that again? And yeah, it's like a lot of victim talk, you know, that I was just like, damn, man, it's really exhausting when it's like, no, you just allowed them to sit there and do this when you knew something was weird. So that's on you. Just eat it, move forward, and go with it. And when it comes to drums, you know, I'm more of a songwriter guy now. I'm more of a guy that, you know, that cares more about what's going on. I mean, even in the writing aspect of it, like, I want to be involved. I want to create that. That gets me off. I'm excited to play drums on the record, but it's been a long time since I've been excited about that. I mean, I usually don't like to play the drums. I never practice. I got 500 drum sets. There's not one of them set up. We don't even rehearse for shows anymore. I mean, when we go to Europe, we're not even rehearsing. I will have not played that set in months. And then we'll go and we'll just do a sound check and say, yeah, that's good, right? And just, you know, go. I mean, I've just accepted it. You know, I've accepted where I'm at. I'm happy with where I'm at. I wished I could have done some things differently, no question, but I'm like at peace. I'm good.
Yeah, there's a certain sense of like, we've been doing this shit forever. And you know, you're not out there trying to prove to somebody that like, oh my God, I'm just fucking above and beyond what everybody else is out there. The people that are on board, you know, regardless of how proggy the record is or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, like, I'm uncomfortable with any kind of accolades or and attention like that anyway. I mean, I appreciate it, no question, you know, that I appreciate it. But in my mind, I know what the real deal is. You know, in my mind, I'm like, there's guys that live this shit and all they care about is drums. Like, all they want to do is, and I commend them and respect them and envy their drive to be so, like, tunnel vision into nailing that. Like, that determination is extremely, like, impressive to me. I'm just not there. I've got way too many other things that I want to do that I can't put my hand in that basket. And I look at it almost like, you know what, I've done it long enough to where I think I'm good at what I do and I'm comfortable right there. Not to say I won't push it when I get in the studio and try to get a little extra inspiration into some of the parts. But I'm going to be thinking about writing the songs. I'm going to be thinking about counter melodies. I'm going to be thinking about, you know, lyrics. I'm going to be thinking about, you know, tagging different parts. I'm going to be thinking about this other band that, you know, I'm A&Ring at a record company that I work for. I'm going to start thinking about this video that I have to do for this next single that these guys that I produced, are doing. I've got shit all over the place. So it's like, and through all that, I got to start, make sure that number one on my list is making sure my kids are cool. So there's just really not that much time left to practice.
The man doesn't practice, and you're, oh man, dude, you're the man in my eyes. That's all I have to say.
Seriously, dude, this guy.
I basically fill out and I go, I got to tell you, man, basically, I'm a fucking useless piece of shit. And you go, I love you, man.
I played shows for years wearing a shirt that said, I wish I was Morgan Rose.
God
yeah,
almighty,
I mean, I've been listening to this motherfucker.
I've
been listening to this motherfucker for like 10 years. Be like, dude, you don't get it. Because like I'm like a brutal metal guy. Like I'm super double bass, crazy polyrhythmic bullshit, guy. And Joe the whole time is like, dude, it's all about the feel. Okay, you need to listen to more Sevendust. And I'm like, dude, I fucking listened to all of it for you, and
right.
But there is a little bit of clarity in what he's saying though, because I kind of think that in a sense the locking in, the knowing who you are aspect of it makes it more human. Like it's more human overall. And is a little bit more legitimate of a performance in the sense that you're getting who somebody is through their instrument. Whereas we live in a world now where it's just like you can fuck it and fix it, so to speak. Like you can just throw down whatever bullshit you want and we can just fix it on our MacBooks, But so like the idea, I think what Joe's getting at, he's just fanboying out a little too much to articulate it. But
no,
I think what he's getting at is just that the idea of field drumming. He's always been obsessed with it, and I totally understand it. In that, like, when you're just going with the way something feels, it adds a much more human element to the sound overall, and you can definitely hear that. Especially with what you provided us with as far as your mindset behind recording a lot of the albums has just been like, this is whenever I was all in, and this is when I wasn't. And you can hear that.
Yeah, I mean, without question, it's I think that even the ones that I was mentally busted up, you can kind of hear, like, it's not that it's good or bad. There's an emotion in there. There's something emotional going on in all those records, whether it be, guy's not doing too good, or whether it's he sounds really pissed, or it's there. I mean, that part of it I feel does get through, but I try not to depend too much on help. I know that to me as a producer and as a guy that's in that world now, it's more like the performance has to be good. It doesn't really matter. There's ways to fix things, obviously, but the performance has to be good. And I can't remember who it was that taught me that. I obviously was one of the guys that worked with us. I really don't remember. I think it might have been Bush, but somewhere along the lines, I accepted that. And I thought that is a fact. Imperfections are fine. Some of them can be kept. And the ones that can't be, that's okay. Well, we can fix that up enough to where as long as the performance is what it needs to be, then we're cool.
Joe's pointing a note at Scott. I think Scott's trying to say
Scott's muted.
He's
I can't hear him.
He muted himself, and so he starts talking, and then nobody hears anything.
Oh, I love it.
I love modern technology.
There we go. Come on, Scott.
He's still trying to talk. We can't hear.
Can't hear you, Scott. You're muted, dude. Man.
He's about to say something brilliant. We're gonna miss it.
I dropped off. Let me add him back in.
We're gonna miss it. The poor guy's just trying to go to a Fozzy concert. We're like, no, motherfucker, we're doing the whole history of Sevendust right now.
You guys realize Chris Jericho is at this show, right?
I'm the absolute worst with these. I will fucking sidestep that shit and go right into something that is like, before you know it, it's all about, completely different subject. I mean, I don't even know if we talked about any of the records.
Allow me to sidestep for a moment.
Dude, we made it through. We made it to the finish line.
How did you end up playing drums on Ghost Embrace?
that was my old manager. Asked me if I'd be interested in playing on somebody's record, and I didn't even know any of the music. I didn't even know anything, and I was like, what do you think? And he goes, well, I think that you're off for this much time. You're going to have a big chunk of time off. It'll be a nice trip. You can get some drumming in. And, I'm always a fan of being in the studio, to be honest with you, especially if it's not my shit. Like, I love it in there. There's something way more stress-filled with doing a Sevendust record. I think that I've written most of my best shit for other people, because it's just like, they can either say I like it or I don't like it, and that's the end of it. There's no feelings involved, and no extra stress that comes with being in Sevendust. So yeah, I was like, cool, so I can go in and I'll do like 10 songs, and that'll be great. I'll do 10 songs, and I didn't even know what I was doing. And it turned into like, a vacation. I went out there, I played some drums and shot some guns, watched, all kinds of crazy shit going on with, a bunch of dogs. I love animals. And I met some really cool people, and yeah, it was cool.
You were the second drummer to play for that particular project. The first was Chad Kent, who is one of my favorites also. So obviously I'm a fanboy about that particular thing, even though Dan thinks I'm insane for anything Ghost Embrace.
It's fine, dude.
It's definitely not this style by any means. I mean, it's far from this. I'm not even sure I knew any vocals or anything. It was like the music was kind of done, and then I just kind of went in there and said, what do you want me to, what kind of thing do you want? I was surprised, to be honest, because when I went in, I kind of went in there. I don't like to say it was not prepared. I just wanted to go in there clean. I didn't want to go in there with any real notion of. I asked what the music was like, and I was told that it was rock. And when I went in, I was like, I don't know what this is really. There was no vocals on it that I had really heard. I'd heard some demos that had some vocals, but some of it I heard nothing. So I was like, this just sounds like I can jam on it. This should be pretty simple.
I'm not sure if you guys can hear me now, but that's great.
We can hear you, man.
Oh, good.
Scott's back.
I made several comments, and I was like, just Morgan doesn't care what I'm saying right now, but nobody can hear me what I'm saying.
We're just ignoring you. We put you on block.
Hey, that's cool, man. Oh, dude, I love you guys. Thank you.
Guys, I think we made it to the end. I don't know.
We made it to the finish line. I'm so happy.
Well, Morgan, let me ask you before we lose you for the rest of my life, because I'm dead now.
Your life? Jesus, that's crazy.
One of the things we do every week is we all pick an album of the week, something you're listening to for the past 7 days. It doesn't have to be metal. It can be whatever you want. Morgan Rose, what is your album of the week?
Oh, my God. It's going to be weird, but it's Alessandro Cortini. That's what I've been listening to pretty much for the last 5 days, because there's that, and then there's this Hans Zimmerman, who's more orchestral music. And it's really, I've been listening to that stuff. The Alessandro is 9 Inch Nails' keyboard player. So he does all the programmer keyboard player. So I've been just listening to different things, trying to get melodic inspiration to do something, a little different, because we're getting ready to go in.
Do you mainly listen to metal when you're going into the studio, or do you listen to the exact opposite?
Yeah, I don't listen to metal that much. I mean, I listen to older metal stuff than I do. I love the new Korn record. I do love that. I do love the Fever 333 record. There's a bunch of stuff that I like, but when I'm just listening, bless you. So this is the last, let me go look at my thing. This is the last few things that I've been listening to is Being as an Ocean, The Cure, Katy Perry,
There you go.
Boston.
Same.
Rough Cut, which is some 80s stuff. Judas Priest, The Scorpions, Dokken. I went on an 80s kick there for a little bit.
Hell
Eli
yeah.
Goulding, Cold. I really like the Cold.
I love Cold, man. I've been listening to
Yeah,
new
I
record
love
also.
them. Love them. Attila. That's like some of the heavy. Attila is one of the heavier things I've been listening to a lot.
They're so much fun.
Yeah. Yeah, that's just straight beat the shit out of somebody music.
Yep.
So yeah, I don't usually listen to heavy stuff. The funny thing is though, is that I'll listen to some heavy stuff and then I'll tell Clint to go and listen to a few of these songs to like inspire him into getting heavier. And then he'll come in and take that shit into a whole nother place and I'll be like, oh Jesus, I just created a fucking monster. Like, I think that I was playing like North Lane or something for him before we did the Kill the Flaw record. He came in and the shit was so technical and crazy. I was like, oh man, I don't know how to play any of this. I was like, why did I let him hear that band? You know, like, it was crazy. So,
Dude, I just want to say that I love Morgan. And we just paid for parking, and the guy goes, we gave him money. He goes, hey, that guy wasn't legit. You just gave him a bum money. So that's what I'm doing.
Okay.
I'm sorry, y'all.
You're good, Scott.
But no, man, this has been great, man. And I appreciate you guys like letting me be on board on this podcast. And having Morgan
totally.
in, man. That's amazing.
Totally, man.
yeah, thank you guys for letting me, you know, I felt like I just got a, here, let me even see, what is that? That's a full-on 2-hour therapy session.
Hell yeah, dude.
That'll be $5.
We're here for you, you know?
Dude, Morgan is the best, man. I wish all my interviews were like that, man. It's amazing.
Yeah. No, it's-
Dude, you mentioned St. Louis and Illinois a couple times. You need to let us know when you're in the neighborhood. That's
when
all
you're
I
in the
have to say.
neighborhood, man, we'll come out. We'll have some drinks with you. It'd be awesome.
What is the fast food roast beef place there that they don't have anywhere else but there that's the best ever? I have
Talking
to
about
know
Lion's
it now.
Choice?
Oh my God, dude, I'm going. Yeah, Lion's Choice. Yeah.
Lion's Choice is the shit. I actually went into a place, I think it's called KP's over there, and I won $40,000 on Keno one night.
You fuck.
Dude, it's insane.
Yeah, best ever.
So when Sevendust rolls into town, we need to go to Lion's Choice. Got it. I'll write that down.
Lion's Choice, dude. Lion's Choice is like the best fast food place on earth.
Oh hell yeah, dude! They do fast food, ice cream, anything you want.
Yeah, dude. We'll hang out for sure. I'll probably be in St. Louis anyway. You know, at some point. I'm a crazy person, so St. Louis, and like I said, Clint is there, so
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm sure I'll be in St. Louis. We'll go and we'll hit up the Loop, and we'll hit up the whatever the casino, Maristar over there.
Oh yeah, dude. I've lost so much money there.
What is it? Lemires? Is that the other
There's
one?
Lumiere. There's Ameristar, and then if you want to go down to Hickville, we have River City also.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I'll gamble, but
Yeah.
Scott's paying.
Yeah, Scott's definitely paying. He's driving
What was
up here. Yeah, exactly.
That's right.
Yeah, no shit. All right.
Sounds perfect.
Well,
All right,
Morgan,
guys.
thank you
Hey,
so
Scott.
much, man, for taking the time out to talk to us tonight.
Absolutely, man. Thank you
Dude,
guys.
Clint, I
for
love
having me. Oh, man. All right. Well, listen, you guys have a great night. Scotty, call me tomorrow.
All right.
All right, brother.
Talk to you guys later.
Let me know if you want to
I
go.
love you, man. Thank you.
If you want to go.
So I got to ask, man, how was the Fozzy concert?
Dude, the show was awesome. When we were doing the podcast, actually, we were trying to park, and the guy said $20. So I'm talking to you guys, and I hand Andrew, my friend, $20. Andrew gives him money. We're waiting, and it's taking like maybe 10 minutes. And finally, this other guy comes over and goes, $20. Well, we just paid the other guy $20. And the guy looks around and he goes, I think you just paid a bum $20. So
Oh, shit.
I actually paid $40. All this is going on during the podcast, so it's kind of funny. But yeah, the Fozzy show was awesome. The set list was killer. Man, they packed that place out. I think they sold it out.
Did anybody make the list?
I I probably made the list. I don't know. I was trying to make the list. I was trying to make the backstage list. But no, dude, it was a blast, man. We had a blast. It was so fun. Jericho has the list. I actually am not a huge wrestling fan, and I only know Jericho from the music.
That's awesome.
That's awesome. I believe that's a rarity, because most people know him for either his time in Japan or his time in WCW.
I actually got to interview him once, and I told him that. I was like, dude, I'm just a music fan, and I love Fozzy. And he seemed like kind of refreshed. He's like, oh, well, that's great. Talk about Fozzy.
No, that's really cool. Yeah, because nobody, nobody probably ever says that to him. You know, like, hey man, I just really like your music. But no, that's really cool, man. I need to get out to a show here soon because I haven't escaped the confines of my basement for a while, and I just need to get out of the house. Other than work, so I'm just like super jealous. You're like, yeah, I'm going to a concert, but I'll do this podcast with you, I guess, as a favor to you, and,
dude.
And then I was late. Did we mention that in the intro that I was late for the interview? Scott's like, hey, you guys are about to call, right? And I was like, yeah, I'm gonna call you in an hour. And it's like, no, dude. And I was like, oh no, I did the time zone thing again. I haven't done that. I haven't done that in over a year. Like, messed up the time zones.
Yeah, you said, are you on Eastern? I said, yep. Me and Morgan are on Eastern. And that was fun, man.
Look, we're both sitting here just wondering what's going on. You see, if I had showed up on time, we might have gotten 3 hours out of Morgan instead of 2.
That's true.
And what a 3 hours that would have been.
That would have been cool, man. This has definitely been one of my one of the most fun episodes that we've done. And yeah, man, I wouldn't trade it for the world. Like, it was so much information about Sevendust, stuff that I hadn't even thought about. Like for instance, now that if you're listening to this outro, you've already heard the interview, hopefully. But like whenever I was driving with a buddy of mine the other day, and I was like, hey, have you ever heard of Sevendust? And he's like, dude, man, I mean, Sevendust is a pretty big band, man. Like, yeah, of course I've heard of them. And I was like, oh, okay, I was just checking. And he's like, yeah, they were like mainstream. Like, they're probably all rich or whatever. And I was like, well, actually, it turns out that, yeah, they definitely sold a ton of records. But according to their drummer, they didn't make any money. And they were very upset about that.
At first.
At first, yeah. So that was really mind blowing to me, because I considered Sevendust to be such a big band that like they were like unobtainable, like as far as like that because they took so many great bands out on tour and stuff throughout their existence. I just always assumed that they were like a mainstream like big level band, but after doing this interview, I realized that like that was just a perception, and if they were really selling that much, that like they weren't making any money, like they must have had the worst record deal ever from anybody.
They're actually working on a brand new album, I think this week or next week. Dude, Morgan's the best, man. I love it that he's so open during this interview. Yeah,
he was great, man. I loved it. Like, I just you never get that kind of honesty out of anybody, and it's like really refreshing to hear somebody just tell you how it is.
Oh, absolutely. And you heard him say, like, during the interview, he goes, I usually don't do podcasts, or I don't do. Did he say podcasts or interviews? Because it seemed like he said
he said interviews. I think only Joe knows, because Joe's like edited the whole thing by now. But like, Joe was editing it in real time. Like he wanted to get this episode out. So I hope everybody enjoyed this as much as we did, and I can't wait to hear some of the comments that it'll get. Just from getting that big dose of information.
Final thoughts on Sevendust, Dan.
Oh man, Sevendust. I mean, what else is there to say? I mean, one of the most accomplished bands of the past 25, 30 years, in my opinion. They're a band that I feel like never really achieved the level of respect that they probably deserved. They're responsible for taking so many bands out breaking new bands in and just being super hard workers. And like my own personal opinion is that, I think sometimes, especially with some of their later output, can sometimes sound a little bit samey. But at the same time, like, if you're a Sevendust fan, then that's what you want, and that's what they give you every time. So, I mean, can you really complain about that if you're a fan? I don't think you can.
Scott Bowling, what about you?
Dude, Dan said it all, man. That was good. That's hard to follow up that. What I love about Sevendust is that I'm from Atlanta. They're from Atlanta. When I was 17, one of the first shows I ever saw at the Masquerade, downtown Atlanta, was Sevendust. I was blown away by it, and just the fact that like I'm friends with them now. It's amazing, and their fan base is huge. I mean, I've never seen anything like that. Facebook, they have a huge fan base, and always had a fan base. Even before Facebook, they've always had a following, just this cult following. And I love the fact that they've been around so long now that they can go back and play these first albums from start to finish, the second Home, and hopefully the third, my favorite, Animosity, from start to finish. And I really feel like that's how you made it, when you can go back and play these albums and your fans just love it, and you're just worshipped, and it's worshipped by your fans. So I love Sevendust, and I always will. And so thank you guys so much for letting me be part of this.
Yeah, man, and let's not understate it. Thank you for setting all this up.
Everybody say thank you, Scott, all at once.
Thank you, Scott.
I said it at the start of the interview. Morgan is one of the holy trinity of drummers in my eyes. I cannot believe that this podcast has allowed me to talk to now two of the three greatest drummers in my eyes.
Who's the third one?
Chad Sexton.
Oof. Love that dude. That's awesome.
It would be an understatement for me to say anything that isn't positive about Sevendust. They are a band that I used as ammunition against Dan in his world of everything has to be extreme today. I know yesterday it was different. It was all about grunge, but today, it's all about Zao.
Still is.
Sevendust was a band that I always pulled out when everybody said thrash metal's a thing. It's got to be played this way. There isn't any hybrid band that really matters other than 311 or The Urge if you're in St. Louis.
Love The Urge.
And I said it during the podcast. I feel like Sevendust is the heaviest hybrid music you can listen to. They're not just straight metal, but they appeal to a metal crowd. They're not just hard rock, but they appeal to the hard rock crowd. They can play an acoustic set and a heavy set in the same town, and everybody's going to go to both shows. So listen to Sevendust, because you're missing out if you're a fan of heavy music. Dan, what's your album of the week?
My album of the week. Oh my goodness. That one's going to be kind of hard to pin down, because I want to say that it's Circleback, but I think I retired it already, didn't I?
I'll let you have it one more week if you want.
Circleback Terminus, get it. It's amazing. You can get it on vinyl now. Check it out. And also go on Brutally Speaking and check out my interview with John Marino of Circleback. Trust me on this. It's good stuff.
Scott Bowling, what about you?
So actually, I'm trying to pronounce this right. I usually don't listen to country music, but there's a country guy I love that's been on Joe Rogan recently, Sturgill Simpson. And he has that old school country. But he just put out this rock record. It kind of sounds like The Wall, Pink Floyd, and it's just a trippy, like, it's not your typical country kind of artist. Sturgill Simpson.
Not your grandma's country.
Yes.
There you go.
For me, it's Get Some by Snot.
Yes.
You don't talk to Morgan Rose for 2 hours and then not listen to Snot.
I just assume that you're always listening to Snot.
We're going to take your town.
Yeah, because I mean, I gotta mention that I was getting a little choked up during that conversation when you guys were talking about Lynn, because I was just like, man, we're getting all emotional here on Discography Discussion. Like, we don't really do that too much, but he's just it was just so sincere. It was a very sincere conversation. So I just I love that about it.
Oh, that's great, man.
Have you ever been sitting there wondering, why do these guys keep talking about all these bands that are not my favorite bands? I want them to talk about my favorite band. Well, there's a variety of ways that you can let us know what your favorite band is. You see, we're not mind readers, so you kind of have to help us out a little bit. One way you can do that is you can reach out to us on Facebook under facebook.com/discography discussion. You can tweet at us at discussmetal, or if you want to tweet at me or Joe individually, you can tweet us at discussmetaldan and discussmetaljoe. You could even send us an email at danandjoeshow@gmail.com. And we even have our own Discord server that is hopping right now. If you guys want to join the discussion on Discord, we have a link in the show notes that you can click on to take you to our Discord server. There is conversations happening on there 24 hours a day. I can't keep up with it. Joe can't keep up with it. It's madness. And we have so much fun talking to you guys on Discord. So definitely check us out there. If you can't get a hold of us any other way, I mean, it's your fault. I've given you like 12 different ways. I don't do math very good, so don't go back and check it.
And on that note, this has been episode 137 of Discography Discussion. Thank you for listening. You can like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter at Discuss Metal. Subscribe to our podcast everywhere you listen to podcasts, including Google Play, Apple Podcasts, and Stitcher. Visit discussmetal.com for all things discography discussion, and please send questions and comments to danandjoeshow@gmail.com. If you are not a patron, you can become one at patreon.com/discussmetal. We have some sweet perks. Scott Bowling and Good Company can be found online, Facebook, YouTube, or scottgoodcompany.com. Warning, may or may not contain actual bowling.
Perfect.
It should.
One of these days it will be that. Like, you'll get like Brian Head Welch to come out and you guys will go bowling and you'll call it Good Company with actual bowling. It'll be amazing.
Do a charity thing? That'd be amazing.
Welcome to Bowling with cool. Bowling. 24 hours of bowling.
I would drive down there for that.